Welcome to a special edition of the Wildcard Podcast, Episode 9, your Scuba 64 recap and your Tide 32 preview coming in hot. But today, it's going to be a little bit different story. Joining us will be Charles Sandfer. We'll get to more of him in a minute. Gman could not be with us. We thank Chief for giving Sandfer this opportunity to take time out of his day and recap what was an absolute electric Scuba 64 round. Charles Sandfer, welcome to the podcast, my friend. Your first ever edition on the show. Wildcard with G and KT, but it's going to be Wildcard with Sandfer and KT today. How are you looking forward to making your debut here, man? And what are you looking for to recap? We had a crazy round for sure.
I mean, yeah, what a round of 64. Thankfully, a little less upset heavy. We still have plenty of upsets to talk about. I mean, obviously depends on your look on 8 versus 9 as an upset, but we definitely had fewer upsets than we did in March, which I'm glad about. We're probably a little still higher than I would have liked, but it's going to kind of smooth out, I would hope. And man, what a round. We saw a lot of different factors lead to some upsets.
Absolutely, man. A lot of craziness, especially in a couple regions we're going to talk about. But let's get into that Scuba 64 recap, shall we? Starting it off with the Shark region, the up top stairs region, I like to call it. And Sandfer, the top shark, the Great White, was on a bye. We know that. I was on a bye after winning March, courtesy of the entry list being at 62 people. So there's no need to really discuss that. Let's go to that 8-9, that first classic toss-up matchup, and it was a rematch of last year's Bowtie Zach series. Remember the fans at home? Zach was up 3-2 all time in that series, and unfortunately for Bowtie, he tried to get one back but couldn't do it. But a different type of game, Sandfer. I mean, we saw Zach run out early. He was running out of the gates quick, up 3-0. Everything was looking great, electric. And then all of a sudden, a little bit of a card luck change on the first game for Bowtie in Game 5. It really started to swing things into his favor, into a 3-3 contest. But Zach ultimately pulled through with a nice +4 finish to get the job done in Game 7. And a more of a flush of a power play, too, on his side. Talk to me about what you saw in that game and what you're looking forward to for both players moving forward. We know Zach's got a lot of expectations getting his first win of the year, and for Bowtie, a little bit of a backstep after taking that sweep to you in the last tournament and now lost to Zach.
Well, for starters, it definitely looked like it was going to be a repeat of history, but on the other side, because when these two faced off the first time, it was Zach getting the reverse sweep on Bowtie. Zach then not having that history repeat itself, though, and more ways than one, actually, because for Zach, his first 2 matches this year, both been rematches of tournaments last year with Bowtie and Lara. Now, this time, getting the win, where he got the win last time, he's got the 2-0. For Zach, looking forward, he's got a tough matchup. Obviously, we'll get to that in the preview part, but he's got a tough matchup. I think if he can just play that one tough, it's going to be a good sign for him. I don't think he's necessarily going to be expected to win that game. For Bowtie, the problem is now he's got 2 straight losses. He's 1-2. It's not the worst case scenario. Like, there's definitely people that are worse off that are 0-2, and we'll get to them later. But for Bowtie, I think he's going to need to probably maybe change a mindset thing and try and get some wins early on, because he's probably going to end up in this same type of matchup pending a rematch for for May for T3, just because he did lose in 7. But at least he did get a 7-game loss. It's better than what it was looking like when it was possibly the sweep. And he fought hard. That's what I'll give him credit for.
And one thing about Charles Sandfer on the podcast, a little bit different. He's got a lot of interesting stats we'll dive into as we get more into the Scuba 64, or excuse me, the previews of the Tide 32. We do like to do that with the Scuba 64 to recap. And the last thing I'll say, Sandfer, about Zach 103 TV, as his nickname is, he looked a little bit better than most games when he won last year. Last year, he kind of had those play-in wins, was shaky. Sure, he blew the 3-0 a little bit to get to that 3-3 Game 7, but he did look better. He does have a little bit more of a pace management. He recognized that in the quote after the game. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, for sure. Now, this next one, Sandfer, we're not going to talk much about this one because this was a
doozy one. To say.
Not much to say. Vapor, this was the last night game, absolutely destroyed Payne 4-0. It was a true sweep. I don't really got anything to add. Vapor just took care of business, and he's on to the next round pretty swiftly. Unless you got anything to add, that was pretty much a clean sweep and truly the broom game where he swept all the dust off the floor.
I mean, the only thing I've really got to add is, I mean, Payne is in serious trouble. He's tied for now the worst games record out of any player in D1 right now at 1-8. It was, you could have maybe argued dropping from a 9 or from an 8 to a 13 was a big drop, but with how he played, it looked very justified. He's probably going to fall even farther than the 13 for T3.
Yeah, you look at the way Vapor played the game too, Sandfer. He's talked about the big thing, right? The big kahuna, as I like to call it. Those higher card starts. I'm interested to see what he can do in the next round with those higher card starts. You look at the fascinating thing with him, 5-8, but he loves that 6-card special. Remember, this is CSR for the fans at home. That's not allowed multiple times. This is not MCSR until you get to those best of 11s. So we know Vapor's in for a little bit of a heat check in reality on this next guy coming up, because we're going to move into this next match. And Sandfer, what a match. This was the old, I think Gman described it as the old JG versus Double J. If you're a NASCAR fan, 7-time versus the 4-time. But for Clint, it wasn't much. He was smoked out of the core. You could tell he wasn't himself. It's been a tough road for the legend in our heart, but not on the table. Cody 4-1, took care of business. Needed a win to get back on track after the sick game to Brad. Now he enters 1-1, and he'll play Vapor in that prediction round we're going to preview a little bit later. Thoughts on Cody, though, getting a much-needed win, and Clint, he's in some hot water right now for sure.
It was a good rebound for Cody. I didn't watch this game in person, so it's hard for me to kind of speak on it. Just knowing what I heard about it. It's good for Cody, though. He gets off the schneid a little bit. He avoids the 0-2 hole. For Clint, he now is in that 0-2 hole, unfortunately, and not looking all that impressive because he is just 3-8 now to start the year. Fortunately for Lamas, he's going to need to go probably at least Elite 8 to make this even just a worthwhile run, considering who he's got in the region. Because Vapor's not had an impressive win yet either. And so it's kind of, I will get to it in the preview, but that's probably one of those matchups that I'm going to circle as a key matchup for the Tide 32 between Vapor and Cody.
It's very interesting to note, too, for Cody as well, Sandfer, one thing to note, and Vapor, too, ironically, we're going to get in the preview, but with the resumes they have and a lot of the media building about these two, everyone talks about Cody. Is he ready for Super League? Is he ready? And then can you back it up? Is Vapor ready to take that next step? It's a media-type game. It should be interesting. Now, this next match, Sandfer, this was a doozy. We were both here for this one. This one was, or maybe, I don't know if you were or not. But regardless,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, but this was a doozy. Yepes was, at this point, on autopilot, up 3-0. No crazy stupidity. Just seemed pretty normal. And then Ed Ziemba out of the blue turned into Edison mode and played into Yepes' style and gave him a scare.
Yeah, this one I wouldn't think it was.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, but he played into a light switch style that really put Yepes under the heat. He put it under the heat lamps and barely got the job done. Yepes 4-3. Is that concern, knowing that the champ is starting to, he's still a world champ. Is it concern where you think he's starting to play a little bit more calculated and not trying to show enough just to get the win? Or do you think there's actually a real level of concern knowing that, hey, Ed Ziemba has improved, but to lose 3 in a row, up 3-0, you wonder if he can get away with that against better comp. It's something to know. One of the more interesting games to dissect.
It's this interesting situation because for Yepes, I think there's an element of it that is probably trying not to show you best stuff. I mean, especially because this one was a streamed game. And there's just going to be that much more streamed games this year. It also could have been a situation he was wanting to maybe let Ziemba kind of showcase some stuff and get out of that 15 hole. It's been known to happen where someone will take a few games off, try and help someone that's in a lower seed get moved up the bracket a little bit. Either way, a good fight for Ziemba. And whereas he said March was probably some of his best, I would let him argue that this would have been one of his better games. He out Yepes a few times, from what I can tell. And for Yepes, he squeaked out the win. I'm not sure if it really helps his case a whole lot, because he doesn't really have all that impressive a resume right now, considering his seedings that he's gotten. And he'll get a good test here in the round 2.
Yeah, we're going to get to that test in a second. The last thing I'll say about Yepes, he is a world champion. And sometimes with those world champions, Sandfer, they take a little bit to get going after that euphoria that was 2023 Super League. He's done a good job to just stay resilient. There's not a lot of people that would have put him in the spot where he would be playing close games as Zamba. Like, he was close with Leah. He was close with Zay. Sure, he lost the turn, as he quote-unquote called it a fluke. But he started to develop the rhythm, and this is going to be the next test. Now, we're not going to discuss this game pretty much in terms of a forfeit. We do wish Fitzwater the best, obviously. DQ win for Cap. Not really much to say other than Fitzwater had health issues. That's all we're going to say and discuss. But for Cap now, Sandfer, he's been on a layoff. He had the loss to Ashley in T1. Good win to Gman. But this is a statement game for Cap. A lot of people have called him the UUL's prospect, right? We talk about that a little bit. But in my opinion, Cap is more than just that. This is truly the round he needs to show what's going on. Not only because of, he's playing Yepes, but it's symbolism, right? We talk about the Tide 32. What is Cap like? The low tide stuff. That's going to be something to note. I mean, is there just your overall perception of what this game means to Cap? We really can't recap this game. So what's your thoughts of Cap so far? Coming over a layover and trying to get in here and take a big win, potentially with Yepes, which we'll preview, but just your thoughts on Cap's overall season, where he stands on a resume standpoint.
Considering he's a rookie, I think he's in a good spot. I mean, to say that as a rookie, he's basically 1-1 right now because of that forfeit. It's a good spot to be. But the problem for him is going to be right now that resume is kind of lacking, as we'll get in touch with a little bit later on. And unfortunately for him, now Yepes becomes his true first real test. And it's going to be a game where he needs to try and showcase something strong and maybe even just try and get a win, get into that Sweet 6 or that Sandy 16 here.
Indeed, and we're going to save a lot of that match for the next predictions and previews for the Tide 32. We'll circle back, but Cap is, like you said, in a solid spot. Let's see what he develops. Now, this next one, Sandfer, I was not here, but I watched this back at least 4 times, and I could not believe the card luck that Carson and Myth were played out to. Myth did a great job taking what was given. Sometimes you get those wins, man. So you know what? I take what's given, right, and I earn it. But in this case, Carson just lost in a fashion I would never wish this fashion on my worst enemy. Card luck to the core. Really no chance to use power play other than I think it was game 3. You were here for more than me. That was the Sunday extravaganza. Talk to me about this win for Myth and Carson ahead. I mean, he was the sophomore class winner, a good March at least, but now it opens up the class, and that's going to make things interesting.
Yeah, this was truly a blink and you miss it game. I mean, I can't think of any series off the top of my head where we've had a series end in under 10 minutes, but that's exactly what we had here. Myth, a 4-game sweep. The first 3 games, basically just all card luck, all 2 minutes or less. And the series was over in just 8 minutes. Not much Carson really could have done other than try and use a power play. And unfortunately for him, he's just out round 1 and has to be left questioning why he got a 3 seed.
It's for Carson, it's unfortunate, but you have to look at this from his perspective. It's a long season. He talked about maybe not being deserving of that 3 line. I beg to differ. I think it was just a case of card luck, man. And that's what happens, right, Sandfer? When you get in those games where it's 5-8, especially 7 cards where Myth has got his own league, where that's all he practices and does. He lives and breathes 7 cards. It's risky, and that's the game he played. And fair play to Myth, man. He hadn't won a game, Sandfer, in a year. He was on a year winless streak. It just shows you how hard it is to win here. And he breaks that winless streak. But now he goes to this match coming in, this next match. Man, what a doozy of a match. We started with Seth Cole up 3-0, similar to Zach 103. He was up 3-0 on cruise control in Yepes. But then Drip just started to go higher tier package stuff, and he really got into Seth's head. And then the Game 7 power play. Now, look, I know Seth did it against Logan in that stream game, but he got away with it because Logan didn't realize you could call him out. And he got called out for it and then just lost control. Big win for Drip. But my question I posed to you, did Drip really win this game, or do you think Seth lost it on minor errors? Because you were there for it, and it was a minor error away in both the records. Because remember, Drip screwed the power play up game 1 too, where he thought he went early. It was a micro margin game, minor error, and sometimes that one error on the power play was the cost. So did Drip win that game, or do you think Seth lost it? And your outlook for Seth now that he's lost moving forward?
I'm going to say that this was probably an element of both. Drip for sure won the games that he won in those first three for games 4 through 6. But unfortunately for Seth, just kind of getting ahead of himself a little bit and trying to get a little too cute. That's the problem. And against Drip, you can't really get cute. And Drip made him pay. Gets a key win because Drip was looking square in the face at going down 0-2 again to start the year, just like some others have. And unfortunately for Seth, gets bit. Probably going to take a hit in his seeding because I'll say it this way. For me, he drops out of my own top 25. But that's just because so many other people won 2 games now.
Correct.
And we'll have to see whether or not Seth can come back from this. It might get even more favorable matchup for round 1 because of this for T3, but a lot still left up for grabs on that in terms of who's going to be seeded where.
Yeah, just for the fans at home keeping score, obviously, who controls the region? Well, KT Ypez, right? That's the obvious. KT Ypez, the 1-2 seeds are still remaining, and it wasn't like that for a lot of the regions. So we'll come back and circle back, like I said, to the Tide 32 predictions and preview a little bit later. But KT and Ypez still hold the regions, and the big sharks and the great white shark regions, I like to call it, of that shark region. Now, we go to the next region, Sandfer. This was a crazy region, too, just as much as Myth and Drip was a little interesting. This one was even more crazier. There's really 2 specific people. Now, we'll start with Ashley on the bye. Obviously, going into bye island, not much to talk about there. But Nick and MGR. Now, this matchup, I believe, was very late, 10:30. I think you were there. I really couldn't have time to watch this bat. I tried because it was long. All I know is MGR missed a power play from what you told me. And I believe Nick was up 2-0. And this is the second time. Remember, he was up 2-0 against Abion, and he's blown a lead. What's the mindset for Nick knowing now that he's got not only a tough road ahead with the 0-2, or excuse me, 0-2 and blown,
1
and
and 2.
Well,
but
1-2,
yeah.
1-2 in overall, but now 0-2 and up 2-0. How does he rally from that back in his look ahead? And thoughts on MGR bouncing back, ironically, despite the power play missing? Is there still concerns on that? Because you're playing someone coming up that's looked absolutely lights out.
For MGR, there's definitely going to have to be concerns because he needs to try and figure out the power play because this time he just misplays it. The first time around, he just flat out forgot he even had it. So for MGR, he's now looking at this. He's 1-1 now. Realistically, he could easily be 2-1 at this point and would have been way better off. In terms of like Super League potential, and these are mistakes that you can't make here. You can't make these type of mistakes in Super League, and hope to really do well. So it's a concern for me in that regard because I think it also dated back to last year where he struggled with the power play. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
He did. Yep.
So something there just needs to figure out. For Nick, almost you have to say it's a composure thing or something at this point that for whatever reason, he gets up 2-0 and just something, he gets overconfident or just starts believing that his opponent's not going to make a change. Something's going on there that now this is twice in a row it's basically happened. And you almost have to take that into consideration when you're trying to seed him. So it's going to start affecting his seeding, I think, in the fact that he's getting into these situations. And he also affects just how good he looks. It affects the people that he's beat, how good they look. There's a lot going wrong here for him.
Yeah, and it goes back to maybe some more film error. The old film told more tape study needs to be done, 2-0s, or could be a composure thing, or sometimes it could just be nerves, right? And you look, those 0-2s where he was up 2-0 were streamed games. And sometimes controlling those nerves are not easy. And you got to look for Nick and maybe go a little bit more inner self, a little bit more self-discovery to understand where the problem was. Because other than that, he needs to work on that. For MGR, as you said, it's going to come down to power play. It's going to come down to ammo control. Those are the 2 things you look for him in round 2 in our Tide 32. We'll get to that. That's a tough matchup, though. It's definitely going to have to be a on the limit performance to have any chance of moving on for sure. Now, this next matchup was not much of a fight, Sandfer. This was our 4-1. It just seemed like Sean R round 1, typical. Confident coming in. never beats himself up in this round. Took care of business. I don't got anything to add here. This was just Ard taking care of business and, starting to put a little doubt in that he's saying, I'm a good round one player. We'll see you in round two where it really matters. What's your thoughts on this? And what's the outlook on Jeff? Because Jeff now, that's 2 stunning losses for sure in this early season.
For Ard, he's 8-1 now in this round. The problem for him is we talked about, or we didn't on podcast, but last year a lot of the discussion ended up being who you were beating, who you're losing to. For Ard, he's got 2 wins now over people that don't have a win. He swept Allen, who didn't even play this tournament. He's got now a commanding win over a guy who's 0-2 and lost to someone that literally in their first round matchup wanted to forfeit the game at one point and still came back to win. So for Bolton, it's a concern. He's now 3-8 to start the year, so it's only marginally better than Payne. But if Bolton can't get it figured out, you have to think that he's one of the rookies that's probably going to get relegated to D2 at the end of the year.
Yeah, it sounds like it's make or break for Jeff Bolton. And for Ard, man, look, we talked about him how many times, man? It's all going to mean in the second round. What's it going to mean in the second round? Because round one Ard is for here. He's for here to stay forever. We know most of his career wins are in round one. Not a problem. It's just going to come down to round two and how he executes. Because that seems to be the big talking point surrounding him, which we'll get to shortly. Who he's going to play? Well, this has to be Sandfer. I'm going to make a little bit of not really a heat check, but I guess more of a hot take, I guess. I think this is a top 3 rivalry in the series, or at least in the league. Peter and Mac, 14 games twice, right? So 7-7. It still favored Peter 4-3, but not the usual Peter Onjak what we thought. The first 4 games, he was a sleeping giant, it seemed like. And then once he got woken up and won that game 4-3 with a little bit of lack of ammo control and pressure from Mac, it seemed like he finally woke up. Definitely one of the performances of the round. Talk to me how Peter Onjak got away with one, in my opinion. And Mac's improvement, despite the loss, his outlook's a little bit better than most people on 0-2 because of the improvement he is starting to show a little bit, for sure.
For Mac, he's 6-8 now to start the year. So, even though he's 0-2, he's basically just a couple cards away in each case of, instead of being 0-2, he could easily have just been 2-0. And what that would have meant, because think about it, his first 7-game loss was against Turner. Turner ended up going to the Final Four in that one. How much different would that have been? Peter now gets the 7-game. Does history repeat itself? And Peter maybe makes that Final Four run? He's definitely got the outlook there if he can keep some of these adjustments. We mentioned in commission meetings that for Peter, one-trick pony a little bit. That's been part of the problem. He flashed a little bit of something different there when down 3-1. And it's going to be a question of how composed is Ard. Can Peter maybe take it to him a little bit and get into his head? And that's going to be, I think, what the key details are for that. And for Peter, it's just good for him to have avoided the 0-2 to start the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of media attention right there. We talk about Peter Onjak. Where's he been? Everyone says where he's been. Well, think about it. Remember, I've been saying on this show for a while now, Sandfer. Remember he was there. He was 1 card away from potentially making the final. He was there. Sure, he's been a little bit lackluster, but this is a great match, right? And same thing for Ard, right? We talk about the round 2 Ard struggles. It's a great litmus test match. I think it's similar to Vapor Lamas. Very good litmus test match. Both guys are going to have something to prove. A little extra chip on their shoulder. And I think the respect is there, right? It's a very rare second round legend on legend battle. Should be a good one for sure, as we'll preview that a little bit later. Now, this next match, Sanford, what an unfortunate way for Nam to lose this one. Some card luck, but the concerns are starting to mount up a little. I'm not going to say it's level of high concern, but Logan was one of those 15 seeds because of the lack of data, because we just didn't know the element of surprise with no stream. He seemed to be really better and a different player on a non-stream, but there wasn't a lot of things where I said, all right, he's the man moving forward. It's truly a big upset. I don't think Nam's in trouble, but he just has some things to work on, especially after he lost in the Final Four and now. His record indicates he's only won 3 games, and he's lost, 9 now? He's 3-9. Not even 3-10 since that Final Four loss. He needs to work on that pace for sure to keep improving. The outlook on Nam and a big win for Logan. What can he do to make this happen? Because he's in the quote unquote more favorable side of this region compared to the top for sure.
For Nam, the outlook I would say is probably takes a little bit of a hit here. Because now the problem for Nam is going to be he really needed a long run to prove that he was for real. Now the question is going to be going into T3, which Nam is for real. And it's going to affect his seeding for sure. And he's going to have to try and fight his way back a little bit. Because obviously, at least with how this looks, it looks like he was jumped the gun a little bit and promoted up to 2 seed a little too quickly. A good win for Logan. Had the nerves get a hold of him in his first matchup when he was on a stream, so definitely was more relaxed here. And this win is kind of what saves Seth a little bit, because that makes that win look just that much better because it was so commanding of a win back in T1. So for Logan, he's going to have a favorable path, I think, here because he definitely doesn't get the highest seed that he could have had in the second round. But he's going to have to show that this is still for real because it still could look like a fluke run or a fluke win when it's just the one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for both players. I think Nam's got some improvement. He's going to try to develop in the time off here allotted when we get back to May. And for Logan, you got to take this and run, right? And you had that tough loss to Seth, but Seth just lost in, I would say, devastating fashion. This is an opportunity for Logan. Now, speaking of a guy that's really improved this year, it's been DJ Curtis Sandfer. Really good, tracking really well. Now, a solid, what is it, 3-1 to start the year. Sure, he lost to KT in the Sweet 16 in March, but he's really done a great job of rallying around. A lot of people thought this could be an upset game, the 3-14 line. Got away with it there and moves in to that tied 32. Now, Leah, another 4-2. Obviously, a lot more improvement needed, but is playing some of these Masters and Legends tough. That's all she's had the entirety of her career here in the first two tournaments. Is her outlook going to get better if she gets the favorable opponent next tournament? And thoughts on DJ? We know he's here for the vibes, but it looks a little different. He looks a little different this year for sure. Maybe a little bit more of a hybrid system.
Did we mean to skip over 7-10?
Oh, I'm sorry about that, man. 7-10.
Well, we'll touch on the DJ Lee and then we can go back. But
yeah,
for DJ, this is a good showing. Obviously, one of the things for him last year was being a vibe guy. He didn't really show much consistency at times. And with the expanded Super League field, if he can keep getting to Sweet 16s, especially as fields continue to look like they're just going to kind of have everyone beat up on each other, that consistency could mean that much more this year compared to last year. For Leah, they've been consistent. I think they're looking potentially at back-to-back 47th place finishes. Potentially, that's undecided at the moment of the recording. But to say that they've at least played two separate players that bring different styles to the table and played both of them to at least 6-game losses, that's at least impressive. We'll have to see what it'll do for the season because obviously, again, just like with March, Leah in a spot where she played well, but there's a few people behind her that played just that little bit better that could impact how high she can get for T3 seeding. But definitely the way it's gone, you can't look past her as a sleeping pick for a first round upset at some point this season. I foresee it happening somewhere down the line where she'll eventually get a good matchup for her.
Yeah, I do apologize to skip over Ghost Log. We just had to make sure everything was clear on my end. Looks like everything's good now. But yes, I agree exactly what you're saying, Stanford. Leah is going to have potential. And when you play those Masters and Legends off the start, man, that's good, right? You get that taste of pedigree from a legendary player like Yepes, and then a master in DJ has been around the sport for a while. You learn from the best, and you can just start to develop your craft. And that upset, it could come T3. But I'm looking for Lee. You got to continue to grow, continue to learn. And when you get that run, take it, right? You could still easily, with the parity we'll talk about later in the episode, it's possible to make a Sweet 16 or even a Elite 8 and still be in the mix for sure. Now let's circle back to Ghost and Lara. Now this one was a fast-paced game, Sam. I remember it was like yesterday. Ghost had a lot of questions coming in as a 7-10. Is he ready? Was that win against who a fluke? Did he lose the edge against Nick? What was going on with that? He proved those haters wrong and shut them up because he took a commanding 4-2 win. And he looked like vintage Ghost, man. Great job on sneak attacks, number efficiency, and low card starters to really get him off, and use the high card starts too to really mix it in. He looked vintage. Lara, who on the other hand, a little bit more concerning because remember, the retro loss was a little bit weird despite the Zach rematch win. Now another 4-2 loss here to Ghost. He's in a different spot with the resume. Talk to me about Lara as outlook moving forward. And thoughts on Ghost trying to bring it back here. He's done a great job as he'll play Logan in the Tie 32.
Well, for Lara, the situation is right now they're being someone else's really good win. So the losses are right now kind of decent enough. The only problem is obviously Retro, as we'll get to, had his issues. But Lara probably needing a bounce back T3 here to try and at least prove which side of it they're on, because now they've got back-to-back losses here. For Ghost, maybe kind of like a must-win situation there. Having lost so badly to Nick last tournament, wasn't representing California all that great. Comes back, gets at least the 4-2. And you have to believe is probably the favorite in that matchup there against Logan to try to get to a Sweet 16. And once you get to a Sweet 16, everything's streamed, bright lights, anything can really happen, as we saw. And Ghost is in that magical 10 seed that Ashley was that made a final just last tournament.
Seems like the magic has been there, man, on that 10 seed. It's funny, Sam, we talk about the magic all the time, and sometimes the magic was the 6th seed last year. And
or the 6th overall seed.
6th overall seed, but we're going to move over to the 6th seed. And this was unfortunately, this line was a beat-up line, because this 6th seed was the only 6th seed to win, as we'll get down further into the other regions. But Yoshi had a good win, man. Good statement win. I wasn't there for this game, unfortunately. I believe you're going to have to take this one, man. All I know is England made a lot of mental errors.
This is the one that neither one of us was there for.
Oh, neither
one happened while I was at school.
Okay, so that never mind. So neither one of us were there. So all I could really go off of, I barely had enough time to really watch the tape. It seemed like England was making a lot of mental errors, couldn't call Uno, a bunch of ammo control issues. Just wasn't the same Sam England that defeated Dark in March. I'm more concerned about what can England do to improve. Is it a practice cup he needs? And for Yoshi, it's a big win, but it's a statement win's going to have to be made in the next round because it's a rematch of last year DJ Yoshi, which we'll get to a little later. Thoughts on Yoshi just kind of securing the deal and getting a win, just playing mistake-free, similar to how Art and Lamas have done it, and England needing to improve because his outlook is now a little bit different than most.
Well, for Yoshi, this was kind of a matchup that when it got written down onto paper, it was a situation, he's coming off a loss already from T1 where he had gotten upset. So in a way, he needed this win to at very least just preserve being a home seed probably for T3, and he did that. For England, the problem is that it's the same mistake that he made against Chomik that hurt him here, where it's not calling Uno. I don't know if you even fix that just by doing a practice cup. The problem with not calling Uno is it's so easy to just counteract, because all you have to do is make sure that you're paying attention to the table. You can pre-type it in and know that there's probably a good 80% chance he's going to forget. And when that's the case, you're just basically, you can stall out someone and just go and wait till you get the run and just have Uno call out ready to go.
There's a lot of concerns with England, and you got to really think. You're right. You can't just evolve that. It's a simple thing, and it's the composure aspect of this league that if he can understand that, I think he can get a better position. Because we saw it with Chomik, too, looking back, saying I just had to go back and scroll. And he did the same thing with Chomik. I mean, he had a couple games where he could have easily flipped the script and won, and that could have easily been a 4-2 or even a 4-3 series. This could have easily been a 4-2, right? But unfortunately, it's just those little mistakes that make a difference in this league. Now, Sandfer, this is a no-brainer here. Ashley controls the region. I guess if we had to go second best, you'd almost have to give it to DJ Yoshi winner because we don't know too much about Peter and Art, right? We just don't know. They both have round 2 questions. Is my question of saying Ashley and DJ are the favorites right, or do you think there's a surprise contender that can join Ashley? Because we lost the 2 seed, so we have to start posing these questions for sure.
I think DJ Yoshi winner being the second person in command for this is probably a fair one, but only because with Ghost and Logan, you don't know what we're getting, and one of them is guaranteed to be in that Sandy 16. So when you look at someone from the bottom end of the bracket, it's going to have to be the one that's in the lead in the Echo 8. So you're probably going through either DJ or Yoshi.
DJ Yoshi alone, Ash. We'll see how that one plans out. Now, speaking of, I don't know where to go with this region because this was the chaos region. 5 upsets.
Yeah, most
here.
upsets. Yeah, the most upsets out of any region here.
Let's start with the non-upset. This was a no% for one. This is, Radden. I'm not gonna harp on the guy a lot. I don't deserve to just keep harp. I know he had that disappointing thing against myself, and it wasn't his best performance, right? He played a little better, but I don't got much. It's just JT and 1 versus 16. That the 2 seeds technically went 2-0. We'll get to that in a little bit later, but it just was classic JT. Not really going to get tripped up on a 16 line and got the win. Radden, I would think it's going to be about relegation, Sandfer. Forget even just winning. How does he get out of relegation this season? Because that's where we're looking at for sure.
Well, I mean, he made a good first step in that direction. One is he got the win, so he's at least tied with Payne for the worst record in terms of games. Now he got on the board, and he at least took out some of the composure elements, where he at least took out the playtime is over comment. I think for Radden, it's almost going to be a situation. He first off just needs to play one of these 1 seeds tough, or hope that we end up in a situation where maybe we only have 60 players. That way he gets a 15 seed instead. But it's going to come down to, first off, he's going to have to play someone tough. He's going to have to get like a 2 loss or a 4-2, a 4-3 loss somewhere. And then he can play his way out into a better seed to where maybe that matchup's going to be a little bit less daunting for him.
Well, that's the thing sometimes, Sandfer, with this. It really is the element of who do I play, right? Who do you get on the old docket? And you look at, we just talked about Logan. Look, he got Nam. Everyone thought, well, less data, and Nam had some issues in the Final Four. Maybe it cooked. Now, Radden is going to have to do a lot. I think he needs to do a lot to improve his gameplay. Yes, playtime over. Great. That's a great first step. That's a good small victory. But ammo control is the biggest thing I see with him. I forget the power play thing. Ammo control. He needs to work on that. He works on that. Okay, we can start to roll and start to move. But until we see that ammo control to at least get to sophomore level, it's hard to really judge where he'll be. We'll give him time. T3 will be a big point to him. Sandfer, I was very disappointed in this man's performance. Acosta, we saw what he did against Fitzwater. And he did all right against myself, even though he lost in the sneak attacks. Just admitted to playing relaxed, too free, and it bit him. Wasn't crisp, clean Uno from him. For Stingray, just kind of took advantage of what he needed to do and made no mistakes and moves on to a tied 32. What's your thoughts on Acosta and what's he got to do in his outlook? Because now he's starting to go into a little slump. It's not the same Acosta that was going the distance last year. It wasn't that case. In fact, he hasn't went the distance all season in any games. Yeah. Thoughts on what he's got to do to improve and Stingray here for the big opportunity with Turner coming.
For Acosta, I'd almost think it's maybe like a mind reset a little bit. You mentioned it with Turner over the offseason, trying to make sure that he could switch mindset, and maybe that's what Acosta needs to do, is get back to where he was thinking with the when he was getting to the full distance, basically. And that's a little bit of a difference. When he's doing those, as usually they were best of 5s and not best of 7s. It's a little bit harder sometimes to go the distance in those games. But I mean, you always have the running theme of saying the house always wins in Vegas. Acosta likes to gamble a lot so far this year, and he's facing a guy who's used to being in Nevada, I should say. But Reno a little bit. They have casinos up there. He's used to it. And again, it's kind of situation. The house won a lot, and Acosta's gambling didn't pay off.
And it's going to happen like that, man. It's going to happen like that, and you gotta accept fate, man. You just gotta accept fate, and we'll see if Acosta can make the improvements. And for Stingray, land of opportunity, man. Land of opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. A little bit of a freeze up of my challenge, so I have to go over to the bracket base. So we'll kind of go back into the bracket base
That's
now.
what I was using anyway.
Yeah, I apologize. So, Sanford, what's is it Caesar H? My challenge frozen.
Caesar Retro would have been the next round one.
Okay, yeah. So this would be Caesar Retro, and then of course H. Okay, perfect. So this is we're on the right part. All right. So Caesar Retro. Now I want to say, Sanford, this was one of the most. I know we had a poll in the server. What was the most impressive? This was it. Now I know you could easily argue Peter. You could argue Drip, but this was it mainly because we all know what Retro could be. He was the most dangerous 13. You even admit. We're going to talk about why you said that in a little bit later when I get to you. He was the most dangerous 13th team. Not so much of how he played, but the mind game. His mind game is incredible sometimes. You just don't know what he's saying half the time. Now, for Caesar, he had a lot of technical issues, right? And those are things you can't get. Internet issues. Yeah, he wasn't focused. Had to use the deafening trick, which must say, top 5 trick in this league. You can use that. That's very good. And then 3-1, okay, no problem. But then he wasn't getting card luck. And then all of a sudden, bang, it flipped. Used the deafening trick. Internet seemed to stabilize. Wasn't caring about the mind games. Started to play into it a little bit when he needed to sporadically. And that's typical Caesar composure in round 1. And got a big, almost a reverse sweep, but a big 4-3. And he used a power play game 1. If he doesn't do that, it's a 4-0 in Retro's favor. What a series. I have to say it was probably the match in a round to watch in my eyes. I know you had a lot of great feelings for watching it too. Thoughts on this one for Caesar? And now Retro, that DQ win, we're going to talk about that a lot this season. That's starting to become a big issue now as he goes into his third tournament coming up.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely a contender for match of the round just because of that. Yeah, Retro, a little bit unlucky. The power play, we didn't know at the time, but we said it could have been a really clutch moment. And then little did we know Retro was going to go and win the next 3. And it's like, whoa, wow, that power play did mean a lot. For Caesar, kind of squeaks by a little bit. And for Retro, the reason why I was saying is because we put him on the 13 line, not because of how he necessarily played in March, but because he gets a DQ and you can't move him up from that.
Right.
Then he's a guy who gets to Sweet 16, but then gets seeded 13. So, and it wasn't necessarily an unfair ranking for him because at that point, it's one of those things like, well, which player is he? Because we've only really seen him in 2 matches. He got past Lara just barely a little bit, and then kind of got blown out by Eli. So, for Retro, probably I'd say he moves up again. Just if nothing else, because average finish, and he played a 4 seed really tough. And playing people tough is going to be what kind of is going to help either salvage a ranking, or moving someone up the bracket if they're on the higher end seeds. For Caesar, it's going to be a situation he almost really needs to win round 2 because his record or his resume besides the wins isn't going to look great. I mean, he had a Carson loss in round 2 in March, and now Carson's out on a card-based game. So, and Caesar's wins are now Retro, who's got basically 1 win, and Toasty, who's got 0 wins, as we'll touch on later. So, definitely a key game going forward for Caesar, especially considering he's still trying to re-put together that top 10 consistency that we saw from him last year. And it's going to be interesting to follow what Retro can do coming back from this for T3.
Yeah, I start to wonder a little bit with Retro. Is it a case of, is the moment too big, right? Because you can get away with those mind games, but this is Julio Caesar, my friend. This is not someone that's going to take no for an answer. He's notoriously really good at beating the people he's supposed to. Similar to Ard, right? It's going to be a round 2 situation. And Sandfer, oh my, this was an absolute spot take by a lot of people. We talked about H being very motivated. That 0-4 to Ashley was not indicative of how he is as a player. and he absolutely destroyed. Now, it was a little bit of car luck. He talked about the old quote, fair and balanced. There's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek play there. But it almost like the bot owed him one. Big win for H. Gets back on the schneid, 1-1. Can build the base now. He'll go into that match with Caesar. Abian, a lot of questions similar to ALP, which we'll get to a little bit later. Was that first run true Abian? And I'm starting to wonder if it really was, though, because wasn't the most crisp Uno. He admitted even after the game, could have been a little bit more efficient on power play. I'm having a little bit of doubt of Abian. I think he can still rally it back, but T3 is going to be the same spot as Nam, right? Is this the real Abian for March, or is it the April one? Talk to me about Abian's out, because the resume is not bad, but it's also not the best. So he's kind of in the mid-pack for sure on a resume, and what H has got to do against Caesar, and just in terms of building his resume.
Well, for Abian, I think the question becomes, does he have to play East Coast guys to get these runs? Because you look at what he did in March.
That's true.
And it was wins over Yoshi, over Nick, over LaPlante. Basically all East Coast guys. I think the farthest west was Nick out of that group, and that's Ohio.
Yep.
So he comes up against H here, and H playing motivated, gets card luck, but also time zone wasn't playing a factor in this one because H is in California now at that point. So the time zone is basically null and void, and he just dominated it. So it is a situation for Abian. Now you have to question which run is authentic for him. And I think that his seeding is almost going to have to reflect that when it comes to T3. For H in round 2, it's going to be a situation, can he get that second win in a tournament? We haven't seen it yet from him because I'm pretty sure his first tournament and only tournament last year, he went 1-1 where he ended up losing to you after winning a play. So This is going to be a key game for him. Can he put 2 wins together in a tournament at some point?
It's insane to think, Sandfer. There's just a lot of people. We talk about styles. Everyone's got similar styles. There's a group of people that there's a trend. Round 2 is their kryptonite. Or for certain other people, it's I can't get out of round 1. Or for certain other people, it's a great problem. I can't get out of the final 4 or Elite 8. You want to be in that final 4 Elite 8 group, but round 2 is something to know. And H is in that same spot. And we'll see how he does. Caesar and him is going to be a great preview in a little bit here. Now, I believe the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is Tago, right? Is that next one Tago?
If we're going down for challenge, you'd want 215, right? Clay versus Lane.
Okay, so you're gonna. I want my challenge froze up. It's all good. So it will be Clay versus. All right. So this one, I was not here, so I have to rely strictly on Sandfer. All I know is Clay. I know is a guy. It's he's got a lot going on in life. I don't want to use that as an excuse. I don't think he deserves that as an excuse. But you got to wonder, because I watched it. This was a confusing game. That game 7 where he had 3+4s lane. Very confusing. We know Clay was on borrowed time the first tournament where should have probably lost to Brando. Should have lost to. Well, he lost to you, but he probably got repaid but the favor by Seth. And we all know that Seth. A lot of speculation. And for Lane, I mean, he won games over 5 minutes. That's the biggest problem we thought was the issue. You can't win over 5. You're not going to win the game. He won over 5, and he did a great job and took control of the series. Thoughts on Lane winning and now knocking Clay out? And what does Clay got to do to bounce back? Is it a style adjustment, or do you think it's just a case of wasn't prepared to the dogfight?
I mean, maybe the one adjustment I'd say is he likes bringing the suit. I don't know if it's just maybe getting too hot under the collar there with bringing suits to each game. Because we're getting to the point of the year where temperatures are going to start to go up.
That's right.
Clay joined in T3 last year, went 0-2 to start, and then is basically right about when the temperatures came down is when he turned it up. I don't think you can just hinge on being a one tournament player, though, this year, as what we're seeing. For Lane, I mean, was it a fluke? Is it not? Well, time will tell. It was an impressive win for him for sure, but the problem is when you look at Clay's record and resume, that win maybe doesn't necessarily hold as much merit, but we've seen 15s make Elite 8 runs already in March. We've seen it in real life, plus in our March tournament. Maybe Lane is that 15 that makes a run.
And you know what? Fair play to him, right? We all know he got trounced by DJ, and we we talk about Sandfer and Joe. That's a game we don't want to see ever again, if possible, avoid at all costs. But he did a great job here, and you know what? He shut the haters up. Now, do we know lane round 2? Minimal data, if any at all. We're gonna find out what he's like, right? We're gonna find out the new style he brings, the new energy. And maybe he's got something that we're just not seeing that we need to look and take a deeper look. We know Lane's not a guy that's going to study film. We know I don't believe he's done a practice cup yet. So it's something to know for sure and what he can do moving forward. Next one's Tago LaPlante, I believe, Sanford, correct me? Okay, this one I have a lot to say about this one. First off, Tago, nothing but respect because he was dealing with a lot of intangibles that you would expect. ALP is a guy that can finish on a +4. He loves his 5-card, 6-card starts for momentum flips. There's a lot of great things to like about ALP, but for Tago, he needed that win. A lot of speculation, similar to Arch, similar to Caesar, Lime. He's in that group. A lot of speculation of a good round 1 player sometimes, but sometimes fumbles in round 2, or just sometimes doesn't even know where to show up in round 1. Answer those critics. Did a great job shutting those doubters up. Impressive. Hats off to him there. Sandfer, I think this is the Albion story, my friend. It really, truly is. ALP was a guy that, in my opinion, I think was hyped up by the fans a lot, and I think it showed that he needs a lot more work to do. He's a different 3-2 versus I think Albion's got more room to work with. ALP is a little bit more different. He plays more with the vibes than people think, and I think there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment coming in May that we're not expecting. Because I know he's been on stream a lot. You wonder if an off-the-radar game in T3 is just what he needs, because his resume is interesting. My question to you, more for someone, forget Tago for a second. We're going to talk more about him in the preview. What does ALP guy do? Because remember, he had that glorious upset to Peter, then he backed it up with Kev. But now we got to face a tough test in Tago. He lost there. He's kind of been all over the map. He lost to Albion too. Talk to me about what he's got to do to adjust, because I'm not sold on him just yet, though I am sold on one thing, is he's not afraid to take chances, which is a good thing to have in this league for sure.
Well, and for LaPlante, I mean, first off, he's actually worse off than Albion anyway, because now LaPlante, with this loss, falls to 2-2, not 3-2. But for LaPlante, the March run, you could argue he really got just lucky, because the first round, Peter makes mistakes and he capitalizes, gets to the game 7. Second round, he gets an opponent that's not going to use power play. And still kind of lucked his way through because, again, it was a game 7 situation. He's yet to go and have a series where he wins it and it's not in the max number of games. So for LaPlante, can he differentiate what he's doing a little bit and try to win one handily is going to be where the question is going to lie. And I mean, he's still playing. He plays Tago tough here. I think that's going to carry some weight in towards his T3 seeding. So obviously he's not going to fall down back to like a 15 seed or something because he still played tough. And he's going to have that 9th place finish that he had to kind of carry some weight a little bit in regards to other players. So I think it's just maybe making a little bit of adjustment. Maybe he plays a practice cup if he can find the time in between now and T3. Because those usually are late at night, and he kind of favors late at night for availabilities. Maybe he tries to do that. I don't know. That would be the one thing I could see for him, though, is just try and make some adjustments to how he plays.
I think he doesn't need to change the whole 5 and. That's a great way to change him. I don't think he needs to change that. You're right, though. He needs to change the way he uses ammo. You know, we're talking about this a little later, that one-trick pony stuff. That it's got to stop, right? You just can't flex on a +4 finish all the time. I don't mind it once in a while, but I think it's something he's going to realize that, you know what, this is more of a serious type of gameplay, film era, practice. Start using those resources. I think he'll figure it out. I'm just not sold on him just yet. But remember, he was a tendency. We gave him that meteoric rise. Sometimes when you give him that rise and you fall back down to humility, It'll change the way you go. Now, the last two matches, I believe, Sandfer, what's the first? Was it Varigold?
Well, Varigold Tapir, the way we've gone, would be the next one.
All right. This one, I have a lot to say here, too. Now, Tapir, look, I know people are going to say, oh, it shouldn't have been there, should have been higher. Oh, he won the game. Okay, he played Varigold. That's not you beat Varigold that has his own unique style where he takes his time on a finishing run and has great. You've done something incredible. Nothing but respect to Pierre. D2 champion T1 as our free trial player, and he showed up and showed out. Absolute respect there. Now for Varigold, I have some things to say, Sandfer. It does not look like the same Varigold, and you start to wonder. We've seen a lot. We saw it in practice even. Not just the cup, regular practice games. People are figuring that style out like the back of their hands. It seems to be a one-trick pony. I know we always talk about T3, summer goal. But with the way the calendar is, that summer goal won't be till T4. Right? He was hot in June and July. We're trending towards June and July being really the months of T4 because of the way the calendar and the way we're ahead of pace. This is a tough one to really read on Varigold. The fact of the matter is he's 0-2, and no one had him at 0-2. Everyone thought he'd be at least 4 or 5 wins deep by now. A lot of concerns for the runner-up in Super League. I'm not going to put it's over button, but it's definitely more concerning than the other guy that's 0-2 because of that one-dimensional style. What does Varigold got to do to really boost his resume? And your thoughts on Tapir, who many believe can make a big run in this tournament for sure.
I mean, I'll start off with just the congrats to Tapir. I mean, to out Varigold was a sight to behold. The fact that this was over in 5 was just stunning as well. For Varigold, this is major red flags. I mean, he's the same record as Jeff Bolton, I think, right now.
3-8, yeah.
No, yeah, 3-8.
No.
He's actually a worse record than Bolton because Bolton's 4-8.
Yes.
So for Varigold to be 3-8 now through 2 games and be 0-2, he's really got to change mindset because I think the days of the 6-card run being what you can do as a finisher, especially because now with the breakdown of being offensive or defensive power play, he can't use the power play mid-run. And therefore, once he starts a run, if you're going slow, that opens the door for people to be able to power play it in between. And with less power plays, you only get the one chance to use it. So there's plenty of opportunities to where it's like you're not really going to have the options to use it. And I think he's looking like a player that maybe was power play dependent, which is an unfortunate spot to be.
Yeah, we talked about that, Sam, for last year. Ever since Dark came in as a competition, we've cut the power play out. I mean, there was times where I remember you and him in the finale, 3 or 4 of them. That's just not going to work. And the crazy part, Sandfer, is he got away with it in Super League. Remember, no power play in the group stage. He did a great job, but I don't know. I think the league has just evolved a lot, and I want to think Varigold's got a lot of stress going on. Maybe he just decompresses in the summer. But because the calendar is a little bit different this year, I wouldn't be shocked if this run doesn't come till. We both said this too privately. It could not come till T4, and that's a dangerous game. You don't want to play an 0-3 game hoping on banking on a summer T4 run, which is that's risking.
Because by that point, if you're 0, let's say he's 0-3, you're probably looking at he's looking at probably like a 14 seed or something by that point.
Yeah, when we have seen chaos on that 3-14 line, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he can make a run, but T4 is not the run where people are going to start taking off on that 3 line. It's going to be T5. So it is a precarious spot, more precarious than the other guy we'll get to in 0-2 because of the evolution, but it's definitely precarious. Now, we just wrapped this game up. This was a confusing game, Sandfer. I mean, we saw it live. You're going to kind of take the lead on this one. Thoughts on this one? Because I don't know what I was seeing that Game 6 with Brian Ellison. Talk to me about this game and your overall, though, since we just got fresh off the boat on that game watching it. That was something.
Yeah, it was something. I mean, for Brian, evolution of his game, I mean, he was pulling KT moves out. Like, KT Classics was there. The
sneak attacks.
He sneak attacks an Uno in on Wild with a +2 then in the back. And then the problem is he does KT strats but loses on. And then Ellison, the power play usage. I mean, I know he's gone on record. He says he's not usually the biggest fan of it. He's not alone in that. There's other people who don't like power play necessarily. But it's here to stay. It's going to be something that he needs to try and figure out how to use. To use it to get to Uno and then draw from Uno is perplexing, but he gets away with it. He wins that game. And he gets to Pierre in round 2. I don't know if he can make that type of a mistake again and not lose that game. So it's a situation where I think Ellison still needs improvements. But for me right now, in terms of people that have won a game this year, these are kind of 2 of the worst ones I've got.
I start to question a little bit of Ellison's style. I did question during that game commentating, like, is just avoiding draw city a strategy? Now, look, that's an OG style. And the crazy part, Sandfer, you know who had that style? Art. He was the guy. He hated it, right? He hated draw city. He's trying to ditch that. Ellison's one of the few that's kind of never changed. He's same with Kev, right? Never changed. Loves to just kind of play the card and vibe with it. It's a rare style we see in the league. It's worked for now. But you could tell, Sandfer, his top deck game was, oh my God.
It was. I would have paid to have had some top deck like that in some games.
Will
say for Ellison, it was also a good thing to see. One of the mistakes he's usually tended to make was he'll do that avoid draw city, but then he'll play action cards as the last cards. He at least seemed to get away from that today, and that's a good thing for him. Hopefully he can kind of keep with that aspect of it if he does continue the avoid draw cities.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Is if he can avoid draw cities and try to almost unbalance to Pier, man. That's who'd have thought I'd be saying that? If he can unbalance to Pier in that, he could have a chance. But it's an interesting one. Now we got to pose the same question, Sandfer, because we lost the 2 seed. Is this Turner and Caesar's region holding the card? We know Turner's a veteran. We know Caesar's. The problem is that they both win. They're on a square course for each other. Is there an outsider that can upset the apple cart right here? Who are you thinking? Who do you look towards?
Well, I mean, because Turner and Caesar, they'll play each other in Sandy 16, you almost have to look at someone from that bottom side, I think, as well. The problem is, are you confident enough in it being Tago? I don't want to say it's Tapir, but it very well could be as a 14 seed.
Christian Tago has been around a long time. He's been around for a while. This is his 5th attempt, I think, in the regular season or something like that.
Sounds about right.
5th or 6th. If you tell me Christian Tago has this this is a absolute make or break tournament right here. He needs to see this as all right.
Yeah,
let's get
his 5th.
5th tournament. Best opportunity I've seen in the Wild Room, right? You got Lane Sanders. You should take care of business. And then you get to Pier, and if you take care of business against him and beat the D2 champ, whoop, Jesse Turner and Caesar, they very well could be. H is there. I mean, H could upset Caesar, and boom, Turner could be gone by H. And if H is there, that's unproven prospect. Or excuse me, that's a proven prospect in H versus a master in Tago. You got to look at that's the option for Tago. He has to be the favorite of the
this very well could be a region where Tago could be the highest seed remaining in the Sandy 16 because I don't even think Turner is necessarily entirely safe against Stingray.
No, it is a truly chaotic region. There could be a 14 versus 15 we could see. Could you imagine a 9 versus 12, which I think could happen?
I think it could happen, yeah. I mean, with who these matchups are, yeah, I could see it happening.
This is truly the chaotic region. I don't know where to think here, Sam. We're going to have to get into that Tide 32 preview a little later. But let's go to that last region, the Salmon region. Obviously, we're not going to talk about your match because
what match?
We're just going to skip right over that. All I'm going to say is I wish Eric the best. Sandfer, just congrats on tying me now as the all-time series win leader.
Yeah, it sets up a very interesting path with both of us being in the same number of games now.
It's funny, man. We've both won 146 games in our career, and we're on this show. it's kind of fitting that we're both on this show here as our all-time series. I guess individual games wins leader. It's interesting.
Yeah, games wins. Yeah.
Well, sure, but we'll kind of switch over now. This next is the Earthquake game. I had the Earthquake on this one. 10:30 start Friday, which is me, Cody, and I think Yoshi on spring break, and it was not much of a game. Chaman just took care of business, man. A lot of card luck, a lot of good, interesting usage from Chomik on splitting the ammo. He came off that Nam 5-2 where he was up 2-0, and he came back with vengeance. But there is one thing I will say about Zay. He did use a power play correctly to stop a win. He got a win. Despite fighting card luck, he did at least get this to 5. It could have easily been a sweep. Thoughts on Zay's outlook? He has an interesting resume. The big one is probably that Yepes L that's carrying him a little bit. And what does Chomik got to do against not just you, but overall? Because his resume, too, with that Namwa is kind of taking a hit. It's kind of a interesting litmus test game for him more than you coming up in the Tide 32.
I mean, I'm not going to try and touch much on the round 2 one yet, just because if nothing else, it's against me. The thing I will say for Zay is the problem for him now is going to be he loses this one in 5, and he loses in a way that is very similar to how his first match went, where he was the one that won 4-1. And you could say, well, he probably maybe shouldn't have been in the 9 seed spot because he had won as a 9 seed, and so in a way his seed dropped. But to look overmatched like this, I don't want to say it was a time zone thing, but in a way it kind of could have been because this game was at 6:30 in the morning for Zay's time, I think.
Yes, 7:30.
7:30. It was something really early. So maybe Zay wasn't fully awake yet, and the problem for him is he's kind of right down there in that Ellison Bryan range of doesn't really have a great win, and now ends up at 1-2 to start the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a statement game for Chomik, in my opinion, too, when he plays you. But for Zay, he's going to have to start thinking maybe. I know he does practice cups once in a while. I think he's more just going to have to develop his style to where, you know what, when the cards aren't there. Because remember, he got the cards against Payne, and what did he do? 4-1. How does he work without the. And that's really what it is, Sandfer. When you don't get the cards or you get 1 or 2 action cards that are not +2s and +4s, just maybe a wild or some, how you can win on those kind of games is the difference between a great player and a good player. Let's see if he evolves in that time off. Now, this next one is this the game? Is this the game, Sam?
Yeah, this would be the game.
Okay.
4:13.
Look, I was not here for this game. I was out. I watched the tape back, and look, Austin Rogers came to play. It's that simple. The way he was playing, I know there's the old, well, his best career win was Peter. I think it's still Peter, in my opinion. I know someone might disagree, but I really think Austin April's a real thing. And I don't want to say G took this lightly because he never does. But you start to wonder in this game, that 7-card start game 1 for G, that feeler, was that the difference? And is G in the same spot as I don't think he is because we know G is a dynamic guy. He's got a lot of things we both do. We've talked about him playing our style. Is it a case of G is just not focused due to D2 and some other off-counter issues where he's got to reset? And your thoughts on Austin Rogers coming out of the wazoo, taking this 4-3 in what was an interesting series and using a lot of eye candy that we hadn't seen since that Peter game where we thought that was more incredible just because he was pulling things that we never had seen on Peter with number efficiency. He played in the Peter style. I feel like Austin just developed his own style. We're not even going to talk about resumes on this game. Just thoughts on this game overall because it was a classic. Just wasn't what we thought was going to happen for sure.
It's definitely not what I thought. I mean, for Austin, basically, it's that hidden element that you can never really plan for, especially when you're making these brackets. And that was that he got tired of us calling him AB Rogers. For it to get dropped, I think what he needs to do is have a game where he loses and he at least just doesn't leave the server for once, because that's part of the problem for him, is he seems to take losses maybe a little bit harder than one needs to. And for Gman, I think he's in a better spot than Gold because at least for Gman's case, he's got 5 wins, which is actually it's almost as good as you could get in terms of being 0-2. So I still think Gman's going to get a win somewhere down the line. I'd feel more confident in saying that for him than I do about Gold right now, which is saying something. For Gman, I look at that first game as one, and I don't think he took it lightly. But there's just some elements that, for whatever reason, he couldn't get things going in an odd number game. And Austin had it going the entire time in those because for this one, I'm pretty sure it was Austin took all the odd number games, Gman took all the even number. And what ended up being the key thing was Gman didn't have a power play in that game 7 because he had to use it in game 6.
Ironically, Austin flushed it. I believe that's what he said. So that's something to it's something to note. I mean, it is an interesting juxtaposition G-Man is in, but I do tend to agree. I think he's in a better spot than Gold at being the 0-2. But he has no room for error now because you don't want to go 0-3. G is not the guy since I believe, what was it, T3 last year to have made a run.
Well, I mean, he said it himself. This is non-clean Super League. He is 0-4 in the first round that he's played in the last 4 tournaments. So
something's got to give. Something has to give, and there's definitely some things G needs to work on. We'll see how he does. Let's see if he can get D2 sorted too. That's going to help, I think. We do wish G the best, of course. Couldn't be on the show today, but we do wish him the best. Now, oh boy, we saw this one last night. Saying Dark Aiden. Oh my goodness. Well, classic Dark. A little bit different Dark than usual, though. A little bit more looser. Seemed a little bit more fresh. He really played Dark style. Eye candy out the wazoo, chess strats, pace management. But in my opinion, he needed this game. Remember, this was the old famous Aiden Smith should have never won this series thanks to some issues with power play on the first turn. I think he got his revenge, best served cold in the old Dark Rain in a dark alley room. That's kind of how I view it. Big win for Dark. Gets back on the schneid and gets his first series win of the year. Aiden Smith 0-2. I saw some improvement, but it's still Aiden Smith. I think he needs a little bit more where he's taking a big hit. He started as a 5 seed. Now he's a 12. And what's the outlook on Aiden, man? It's not the best, but is there anything he could really hold himself high on a positive, knowing that 14 and 15 line has been dangerous if he does end up going there?
I think at the very least he can take that he played this one tough, going down in 6 as opposed to going down in 5. He did take a major hit, and that was just because there wasn't as much faith in him necessarily when he was as the 5, and then he kind of showed it getting Brock. For this was kind of a must-win game for me in terms of for both players, just because for Aiden, if he could get the win, it would prove that he shouldn't have been a 12 at least, and then would have at least shown that the Dark win that he had the first time around wasn't a fluke, and that he didn't need our help basically to get the win. For Dark, obviously, it was proven that he shouldn't have lost basically, and show that he would have had that 1-1 against Aiden the first time. And also for Dark, having to come back from just being down or blowing the 3-1 lead as well in March. I think there's still a lot of work to do for Dark because neither he or Rogers rank that highly on my list right now in terms of like a Super League ranking, just because they're both out 1-1 now. And so it's going to be a key matchup for both, I think, in that round 2 as well. I'm looking ahead towards the Indy 16.
Litmus test games, Sam. That seems to be a theme. A lot of litmus test games in both AR and the Dark fit that category. Now you gotta let me know what's the next game because I don't have the challenge.
It would be Eli Toasty, right? The 215.
All right, perfect. Let's start with this one. I was not here, so the part of the Sunday Quadzilla games. I like to call it the Quad Pack of Quadzilla games. Look, I made a statement on this show. I thought Toaster Guy was the 15 seed. It could really scare him. It seemed like he was up 2-1 early from my understanding. I didn't watch a lot of it. I did watch it back a little bit, but it seemed like Eli's composure was good. Did a great job. I mean, I know he had that one moment where he drew back and really just kind of forced Toaster in his own game into his head. And I'm seeing an opportunity central for Eli, man. He could win the veteran class again, possibly 4-1 off the year. it's very possible he's in a good spot here, and he's got to take this for granted and say, you know what, I'm with Sandfer as the main guys. I'm liking what I'm seeing. His stock's up. Now, Toaster guy, I know he's talked about his improvement. If there is anything I could say, he did get 1 win on Caesar, just time two on Eli. It's a little improvement, but I need to see more on just terms of understanding ammo and also understanding color efficiency. It seems like that's where he's lacking. Thoughts on Toaster guy and how he can improve and this big opportunity for Eli? Forget the next round, just in his resume. He's looking good for him for sure.
Well, it's definitely looking good for Eli. Just because he's got an opportunity here to definitely overtake Nam, for instance. Just because for Eli, he's still going, and now he's got the same number of wins as Nam, but Nam has that tiebreaker of the head-to-head. And this is just a situation, I think, for Eli, he kind of wore down Toaster because this was looking like it was going to go 7 through the 4 games because these guys were tied at 2 through 2, and then Eli just flipped a switch or something because then he commanded games 5 and 6, gets a somewhat easy 4-2 win on paper at least, and looked impressive. He's going to have a tough test in the second round, but if he can get past that, it's looking like another possibly Elite 8 run. And the way things are going, if you can have that 2 Elite 8 runs to start a year, pair with maybe just Sweet 16s the rest of the way, you're looking pretty good for Super League.
That's it, right? It's the old formula, right? Remember, last year was just different. The formula was way different. It was a lot more convoluted. This year, it seems to be more, you know what, parodies in the old play, and got to stay with it for sure. Now, the thing here with Toaster, got one more thing I want to add. You know, he is on that 21-hour time zone difference, I believe, over Eli.
Yeah, that makes the time zone not really matter that much in the way that this one played.
Right. The first time it did matter because that was 17. That's a little different. But 21, it almost like a day ahead. So I don't think time zone's an issue. He's actually one of the guys, if you get the right person, he's pretty easy to schedule with because he's so far ahead. So we do wish Toasty the best. Now, the next match is Brock Kev, right?
Yes.
That's all you, Sandfer. I did not see one lick of that game. Tell me about this gig. I didn't see 1 minute of this. I'm sorry.
Well, and you know
what?
That's probably for the better, truthfully, because Kev is one of those guys. He's been very vocal that he doesn't like the power play. He doesn't want to use it because he'd rather win a game or lose a game cleanly than win the game with the power play. And for Brock, he just took advantage and was able to cruise. For Kev, I can't say it's going to be just a matter of adjustment, or I could say it, but he's not going to on that regard.
Yes.
He's a guy that basically, if you make mistakes, he'll make you pay. But I don't see him really as a big Super League threat, but he can make some resumes look good, depending on who he beats and all that. For Brock, this isn't a game I would have put him in just because he would have had that Aiden path for the lead 8 or for Echo 8. But he takes advantage again, and another situation of a game that he gets put in on Gman suggestion, and he gets that 4-1 cruising in the first round. What is he going to do in the second round? That was the key question, because last time he didn't end up faring so well in the second round after getting that prosperous first round matchup.
Yeah, William Brock versus Eli will be interesting. You know, obviously Brock had a really good 3-1 lead on Curtis, and then the old famous Curtis game came out in Game 6, and the old Patty Mahomes stuff came out, and he really showed up. Now, this next game, Sandfer, I don't really have much to say about this. This was just unfortunate. Similar to Carson Myth, it seemed like Monkey just controlled. Good card luck, sure, but a lot of unique styles from him. A lot of talk about the rumor. The insider rumor is he's looked pretty fine, but remember, he did lose to Ashley, which was a top, in my opinion, 3-player right now in the league. And until he beats the best, we're going to have to find out his litmus test too. It could potentially come in the Sandy 16 with Eli, lingering, maybe for a veteran class. You don't know.
Maybe, yeah, maybe
we'll tease. But thoughts on Monkey, and in my opinion, Sandfer, I know we're praising Monkey here, but Brando a little disappointing, man. You have resources with power play. You got some composure things you got to worry. I wasn't seeing enough Brando there to say, all right, he's back. It seemed like the clay loss was still worse because of all the ammo, but this is just as worse because it's a different type of issue that's going on with him? It seems like composure is a big thing that he needs to work on. Talk to me through this one.
I mean, for Brando, this one disappointed me because for me, I was circling this as I circled this one as my 14/3 upset, really. And then Brando just looked nothing like what happened with the clay game, realistically. I mean, sure, yeah, he didn't get card luck, or as much card luck as Monkey, but you gotta be able to still put together stuff when you don't. And for him to not even get a single game out of this is why I would say this is miles worse than what happened for him against the clay game.
Mm-hmm.
The clay game, at least, he proved that he could stay on the 14 line. Now, for me, when I look at this, he gets swept, and now my question is, does he even stay on 14 line for the next tournament? And the answer is probably not. And so now he's going to be looking at, he probably ends up having to play a 2 seed as his first round matchup in T3, which does he then fare better? Maybe not. I mean, I think for Brando, he's going to have to make some adjustments here. Composure for sure, but probably just figuring out a way to play cards when he doesn't have, or play hands when he doesn't necessarily get the ammo in him, because that seems to be probably where his problems lie right now, which is a tough situation to be in.
Not much you can really do. There's just not much you really can do about that, Sandfer. Sometimes, in a case of, it's hard to really work on composure. The best advice I could give to anyone, if you want to work on your composure, think about you're in a setting, right? You're in a setting that's uncomfortable, and what are you going to do in it uncomfortable? Try to just embrace the uncomfortability of whatever setting is around you, and then start to realize, you know what, I need to slow the game down. Because that's really what the problem is, right? When you have guys that are not composed, they just think the game is too quick and they can't slow down their head and they can't process data. That's his biggest thing. Now let's go to the last match. Kind of funny, Sam. This was the last match to be revealed, and this seemed like it was a game that just didn't want to end for a bit. I'm not going to say what happened during the game 5 and after the post game 5 about M. I mean, all I'm going to say is it was a weird series. That 5-card start game 6 was all card luck, and then Brad on games. I don't know what he was thinking. I think M said it best. He was fishing for the shark, and he got spit out there. Similar to Avion, believe it or not, I still have a little more faith in Brad than ALP, but not the best performance from Brad. At least game 7, but the first 6 games he did hold his own. You just can't do much with Karluk in the 5-card start and game 7. And now Monkey M is an interesting battle. Both are characters. Your outlook on what Brad's got to do now on 3 and 2 for T3, and how M can make a big move, because that Varigold win is not what it used to be for sure.
I mean, for M, the one thing I'll say is basically beating Brad actually kind of saves them in a way, because they were set to probably take a huge hit in terms of if they lose this game, because being only at 1 win, having it be over gold. At least with now having a Brad win, they have wins over someone that's gone to the Elite 8, or they have a win over someone that's gone to the Elite 8. And that puts them in a better spot in a way than like a Stingray who's only got wins over Trip and over Acosta now. But for Brad, it's hard to say. Like, he fought hard, and again, you can't really say much when your loss realistically comes down to card luck. So he gets it to 7, probably will save his seeding at least a little bit. I see that unless something massively happens, I'd probably say he's still in the top 32 overall seeds where he'll get home field for that T3 right now.
Right.
But he definitely doesn't have control of his own destiny right now, in the sense of he's not going to be able to control where he's at in people's rankings based on getting extra wins at this point.
Yeah, Brad needs a little work. I'm not going to lie. He does go to those cups though. No, he does go to the cups. He does work on his game, works on his craft. I expect him to figure it out on this break. And he was on a little vacation. This game was originally supposed to set. I think it was Wednesday. One of the first opening games of the round. Didn't happen. It was one of the later games of the round. Maybe he'll learn a little bit. But that's it for the recap, Sandfer. Because remember, it's still you and Eli controlling the region, 1 and 2 seeds. So there's no need to discuss that. Good job to you guys. We'll see how you do as well, coming off a forfeit loss. Now, a forfeit win, and really a DQ win. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the state of the sport, which is coming up, and how that plays out. Now, Let's go to the sea line. Sandfer, this was an interesting one. We talked about March being ridiculous. The sea lines were off the map. A little bit more calmer this time. How about you go read that sea line, my friend? Do you have it in front of you? You want me to read it off?
I mean, I didn't have it in front of me. I can get it in front
I
of
can
me.
read it off. No worries. So let's kind of skip over the 116. The 1Cs were 2-0. 16C was 0-2. I think I really want to talk about 3C lines, right? We're not going to go through all of them. I want to start with probably the glaring one, the 2-3 line. The 2 line, look, we talk about this in our bracket meeting. It's supposed to be a match of just take care of business. Don't be a fool. Play composed Uno, and you're in a good spot. The problem with the 2 line is 2 of those players, I feel like we're not. Clay was not, for sure. Nam, maybe a little bit of card hook, sure, but exposure, sure. Kind of, and Ziemba and Ed for Ed, he was 1 game away, right? And even Yepes wasn't there. The only 2 seed, in my opinion, that really felt dialed in and was comfortable was Eli. And it's not going to be, I would say, our fault when you're not dialed in and composed to the core. It's surprising that the 2 seeds are starting to be a little bit more shakier this year, or do you think it really shows the parity and the adjustments these 15 seeds have made to stay more motivated because they're down there, Sandfer?
I think it shows it's a little bit of both, I think, because I think part of it is the 15 seeds, I think, got into a situation that they were motivated a little bit. Like in the case of Ziemba, in the case of Logan, maybe it was a little bit of motivation. But at the end of the day, yeah, like you said, it's composure is going to reign supreme, especially in a round 1 where it's only a best of 7. And for Clay and Nam, I think it's just a situation where the spotlight of being that high maybe got a little bit to them, and they just didn't really play composure or composed Uno, and got bit because of it.
The moment can never be too big, my friend. That's the biggest thing I always say, Sam. Rather than the mind is that's gonna be the game is temporary, the mind is forever. That's the thing. You have to understand the moment is never too big. It's tournament too. The good thing is early, but it's something to watch because the 3 line is the same way. Now I'm going to kind of exclude Tapir, right? Because we don't really know much about him. We could have put him at a 12 or 11, sure, but it doesn't change the fact that
you're looking at who you would have put down there too. That's the only problem.
It doesn't change the outcome of look. At the end of the day, congratulations not only to Tapir, but congratulations to Myth. I mean, at the end of the day, sure it was card luck, but they had a lot of problems, right? Tapir was coming in with, oh, well, what's he going to do? Right? All this unknown, and Myth, oh, he hadn't won in a year. Took care of business. I don't think it's the 3 seeds' fault this time around, but something I'm not really going to get a comment from you because I'm going to get a comment from this one, which I think is a bigger storyline. But it just shows you that the 3 seed 14 Bow, they're not cupcakes anymore, man. Last year, a 3 seed and a 14 was only 1. Remember, sometimes it would only be 1 game because we go over overall seeds or conference games. In this region format, they're just not cakewalks anymore, and it's definitely different now. The bigger one, Sanford, we both talked about that 11 line. Even the computer said it's a scary line. And it was right. It was a scary. I mean, drip winning was big. I'm sure it was in a weird circumstance. Obviously, in my opinion, the biggest 11 seed shocker, more than the drip one where he came back, was you have to look at M because M was, many people thought Brad could continue and Brad was real bad. Brad, I think M pulling that out. A lot of people were like, well, I don't know. That's a big shocker. I think we all kind of knew Ellison was going to beat Brian. And of course, Yoshi taking care of business on England was not going to be easy until it was because England made mental mistakes. Are we seeing a trend that there's going to be one dominant? We saw last year, or last tournament, it was the 12s, right? 12s beat up on the 5s, only Ard won in the first round. Are we always going to have something like that every tournament because of the disparity, because of one line being dangerous, and the fact that we got big contenders moving back?
I think with how deep the field is, you're going to see one no matter what. Last tournament we had, it was the 9. June last year, we saw, I mean, it was smaller field. We saw the 6 dominate a 3. I mean, I think we had the variable tournament. I think every single 3 seed lost.
Yep.
On that one, and it was a surprise at the time. I think because of how deep this field is going to be, because there's going to be so much fluidity with the bracket a little bit, and there almost has to be because of now just how many more people there are. I think we're always going to find that there's going to be people that end up underseeded, and they're going to end up playing with that motivation. I mean, for the 3 seed, I'll say, because I mean, you basically throw Myth out because that was just luck.
Yeah.
And realistically, they go 2-1. That's not the worst case. To say that the 14s go 2-2, not maybe ideal, but it's at least it's maybe better than a 3 seed going 4-0, where you can see that the 14s have at least a shot at some point. Ideally, I think that line probably for me is like maybe a 3-1. Or 4-0 in those 3 seeds favor in most tournaments. So a little bit of misseeding this one. The 5 seeds get their revenge on last tournament where the 12 seeds were, I think, the 3-1. Now the 5 seed goes 3-1 here, so they're kind of even for the year. And I think the 4 seed gets a little bit of revenge this time too, going 3-1 instead of I think they split the first time around.
They did indeed. Yep. Keep going. You're good.
No, I'm good. I was saying kind of because we skipped over those two. I was just kind of mentioning that at least in there.
No, I do appreciate you mentioning that because that's really what it is, man. It's a lot of disparity. It's a lot of deep ocean's floor of players. There's a lot of the old saying, right? Fish are friends, not food. Well,
I threw that one out to you because you named one the shark region.
Yeah. We're going to get to now. We're going to move over to probably what everyone's waiting for, right? That's usually when G and I do this. Everyone's waiting for these predictions. Now, remember, I do want to say I do want to make an omission here, right? These are CPU predictions. These are not my predictions. I know I've get questions about these are not my. These are the CPU predictions. I have a program where I can plug everything in, and it gives me a number, right? Let's get to it. Obviously, I cannot make the first prediction, Sandfer, because it's myself and Zach. So all I can say is the CPU said I would win 4-1. So that's the rule on the podcast. I can't make my own prediction, so I have to kind of preview my opponent. Look, Zach is a guy that I think is more of an up and coming prospect more than we think. I know he's a veteran? In my opinion,
class, yeah.
He's an upcoming prospect. Remember, he was seeded 4 overall last year. Was too
March, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he's been on a free-for-all. I think we need to really take a step back and appreciate what he's trying to do here, build his platform. It's going to be a good match. I'm not going to say a lot because I know a lot of what he does. If he can get 2 games, I will say, because remember, I am locked in for the year, I'd be impressed. If he can get 2 games and really play as humble and plays his Uno, I'd be very impressed. So with that, I can't say much. Let's go over to you, buddy. What's the prediction? All I can say is the computer predicted me 4-1. Go for it.
I mean, I think that the computer prediction is pretty fair for this. For Zach, the problem for at least facing you is we saw how you did against Acosta with the sneak attacks. And the problem is Zach even has said it, I think, in public record where he's not going to call people out on Uno. And so that just allows for the sneak attack, and it's just going to be too much. I think for Zach, this is going to be a case of can he at least just steal a couple games here or there and get to 6 or 7 games. But yeah, I think it's going to be you all the way for sure.
Yeah, we're going to see how Zach does. Like I said, it's not a litmus test. This is more of just maybe improve that seeding, right? We always talk about the finishing results, man. Right? There's a difference between finishing 17th and 32nd. Try to get something in the middle, right? Maybe steal a game or 2 and avoid a sweep. You never know. We saw Karsten was tracking 61st, right? At one point. Now he moved up a little bit thanks to some sweeps. They were worse.
And the forfeit.
Yeah, so you just never know. That's the beautiful. You're not always out of it in this league for sure. Sandfer, this is the match. I think these next 2 are the matches I want to look at. Vapor Lamas. Now look. I'm going to say this. Vapor has the low tide stuff. We all know it. It's low tide city. But he is working on that high. Cody needs a win. And Vapor needs a win. Cody beat Clint. Vapor beat... These are the, I guess you say, the bottom of the barrel of the league. I think something's got to give here. I really do trust Vapor, believe it or not, on those low card starts. He does control the pace. But the risk with that low card stuff, if he doesn't practice high, right? if Cody steals just albeit one game on his homestand, and gets a 2-1 in his favor, maybe even a 3-1 entering Game 5, Vapor can't just bail back to 6. I think I'm personally going to go with Cody. The computer does as well. It goes 7, and the computer says it's an even game. I agree. It's a litmus test game for both. Give me Cody in 7, and I'm going to believe he wins this because he finds a little bit of extra units in that Game 7 on a higher card start that Vapor's going to have to basically compensate for because the lower ones are taken due to CSR, and it gives Cody in his favor. But it's going to be a close game. Give me Cody 4-3. What says you? Tough game, though. Very tough.
I think this is a tough game. It's going to be a tough one to predict, I think, as well. For Vapor, we saw he is practicing those higher cards. I mean, he's done a few. He did a practice 7-game set where he even picked 14 on one of his, and he's trying to work on stuff that he doesn't do well, which is a positive. For him, in this one, he's going to have the advantage that he doesn't have to worry about having 4 road starts, which could play in his favor. I do think it's going to be too much Cody, and I'm even just going to say probably a 4-2. I think this is where Cody this was Cody's first tournament last year. I think Cody uses this to kind of springboard his year a little bit.
Building the platform, eh? That's it. A little bit of building the platform for sure. Now, Cody needs to stay and win. I think Vapor's a great player, but needs some work. I think he will keep it close, though. I won't be. I still have faith in 7. It should be a classic, and that will be. We can say that will be a stream game too. I guess we can say that too. Why not? Why not? Right? Stream game.
Not? The reveal show will be before this goes out anyway.
Yeah. So not. Yeah. Actually, the reveal show is supposed to. No, never mind. We should never say that. The reveal show will be. This will be out before the reveal show. Oh well, that doesn't matter.
More likely, unless.
Yeah, we move quick here because Short's going to produce this whole thing. Thank you, Short. But okay, this next one, Sandfer. This one's a surprise with the computer game. Obviously, Cap 0-0, right? Don't know. Coming in off the boat, right? The captain off the boat. He finally landed ashore. Yepes had that really, really interesting game against Ed. You know, he likes higher card starts. Cap is it's a true high low tide game. I'm surprised with this one, Sam. I had to run this one a lot. Captain 4-3 to the CPU. That's rare because the CPU. What does the CPU love? Champions, pedigree, tournament winner. It's going against the world champ. I'm torn on this one. I really think Yepes could win this, but I have to go with the CPU. 4-3. I'm going to say the upset, and it has to be due to the element of surprise. And maybe the CPU is saying, you just lost to a guy almost that was playing your style. Is there flaws in there? Is there some gap? Is there cracks? Is there some micro cracks forming in Yepes's game? Because we both saw the same game, and it was not the typical Yepes games 4-6. He seemed to be off. What's your thoughts? Captain 4-3, according to the CPU. What says you? This will be a tough one, though.
Yeah, this one's another tough one to predict. For me, when I look at this, what I'm thinking about is that Captain comes in off the bye, basically, didn't play. And we don't see him usually do practice games that much, so it's hard to see where he's going to be at. For Yepes, he usually struggles. Either he will go out early or makes a deep run. And he nearly went out early here. This is kind of that seed line that he normally would struggle with, like that 7-8 seed area. I'm going to agree with the computer here, and I'm going to say that it is Captain 4-3, and probably even go on a limb and say it's maybe just by a couple cards by the end of it.
It's the only series I believe that's true 4-on-4, because remember, H and Caesar's not technically due to the actual current location, but it is Latvia versus Venezuela. A little bit of a rivalry going. You know, ironically, a little bit of a rivalry. They've had some words, and we'll see how this one boils in. Now, this next match, Sandfer, I don't think anyone had this on their bingo card. A lot of people thought this could be the Guild Ubisoft match. Seth Carson.
That was the whole...
Yeah, we didn't get that. Now, the computer's all on drip on this one. I'm going to keep this kind of short. It really said drip. That luck Myth had, that was because if there's one thing I could see Carson play into the 7 card, Myth is not going to get that from drip. We know drip is a sender. 14, 15, 30. He loves the sends, whether it be the OG or the actual full or the double OG. I think that's the reason why it's not going to be just a Myth game. He's just going to run away with. I think Myth needs a lot more work on things over 8+. 8 is like his limit. 9+, he starts to get a little bit flustered. I think Drip wins this one 4-2. I'm going to say it's top by the computer because I would have said 4-1, but remember, Myth did have a little car, and Drip might have to go to a little lower start if he starts winning on higher stuff. So maybe Myth will steal one, but I think it's just too much Drip, man. And Drip is very motivated. We saw what it's similar to A, very motivated players. We see what they can do. I got to go Drip here in a 11 seed win for sure. What says you?
I'm probably going to agree more than likely just because for Myth, the problem is he gets a win in a very card luck based way. And the problem for him is going to be what is he going to do when that luck inevitably runs out? Because you're not going to get card luck to boost you all the way through every single time. And Drip is going to be one of those that he's going to have tools in the arsenal to kind of combat card luck a little bit because he'll pull out the KT Classics.
Right.
I'm going to disagree with the computer slightly. I'm going to say that it's actually going to be 4-3 Drip in a close one. But yeah, just too much Drip, I think, on this one. Just because Myth's going to probably have to rely on something other than just card luck to get it done.
If that were the case, we just kind of recap. It'd be Sandy 16, the old sparring battle, KT versus Lamas, and then the old UUL Classic. Yeah, that's an old UUL Classic, Cap versus Strip. That's pretty explosive if we get that, Sandfer. Let's see if we do indeed get that. Now, we move into probably the two more chaotic regions, we think. Start with the Dolphin region. I gotta be honest with you, Sandfer. I know Ashley's on a bye. Too much Ashley here. MGR is in for a rude awakening. I know the computer has Ashley 4-1, similar to how I was. I agree. I just don't know if MGR's got enough in the tank. Playing all that ammo early and not having that power play game sealed up, that's not going to work with a world champion coming to bat. I just got Ashley. Too much Ashley 4-1. Not really much to say. This just should take care of business. Let's move on to the semis for sure, the regional semis. What says you?
Yeah, way too much Ashley here. MGR with the mistakes that he makes, he could maybe steal one, but I'm going to say he doesn't. I'm going to say Ashley gets the brooms out and goes into Sandy 16 that way with his 4-0.
Ooh, a little bit of a cheek, a little bit of heat check there. Nothing crazy, a little minor heat check, but not a bad one. It is Ashley, one of the better players here in the league for sure. Definitely has earned her stripes. Now, oh boy, I've been waiting for this one, Sam, for Art Peter. Oh boy, this is a litmus test game similar to Vapor Lamas. You look at Art, he loves to close the doors. What does Peter sometimes do? Leave it open, right? And because of that reason, and because Art is not playing a guy that's disrespectful to her, this is a respectful match. It's a legend on legend. There's not much built-in drama. It's a non-stream, which is crazy to say. Art wins this game, and the computer also agrees. Art wins this game, but it's a squeaker. Art takes this series, Sandfer, but the computer says it's going to come down to a power play. He'll win. I think it comes down to a power play in 7. The computer says 4-2. I think it comes down to a power play for Ard. I have to go with the computer. I think it's 4-3. It's a closer game than people meet the eye. I just wonder if Peter's number efficiency, and because he leaves the door open, it's only two-dimensional, and Ard likes playing those kind of styles, is too much, and he has to adjust. What says you? Give me Ard 4-3. Computer says 4-2. What do you got?
So, this is the round that we saw Ard basically not have composure in last round, or last match, or last tournament, I should say, March.
Yep.
For Peter, he's trying to make a statement. He's trying to come back from down from an 0-1 hole, so he's going to have to try and showcase that he's got what it takes. If he can get some early wins, especially on Ard's homestand, I think that might unsettle Ard a little bit, because we've seen that if things don't necessarily go great and according to plan for him, he can kind of snowball. I'm actually going to go for the upset here. I'm going to say Peter 4-2.
Peter 4-2. Okay. It's our first one difference for sure. Now, obviously, it is a it is definitely a toss-up game. It's a litmus test game. Expect this one to go off the schneid, and it should be a classic no matter what. Now, this next one is an unknown game, Sandfer. Logan Ghost. I mean, you look at Logan, that big win against Nam. I mean, how do you follow that up? You got to play Ghost, and I mean, we know Ghost, Sandfer. He's fastest player in the league, right? But I would think by a long shot, one of the fastest, if not the fastest, processing data. Has the sneak attack. Ghost is trying to make a Super League statement. I'm with the computer on this one. Give me Ghost 4-2. I'm not seeing enough from Logan to play two fast players without some adaptation. Does he have time to adapt? Sure. Is it enough? I don't think so. I got Ghost all day here 4-2. I think he's too much, and he's going to get back in the shine and get back to the Sweet 16, as he likes to call it, with the Sandy 16 for April. What says you? You going with your fellow statesman?
Yeah, I'm going to have to, I think. For me, this is kind of a battle to see who's going to get into the top 25 for me, truthfully, after 2 rounds. And for me, when I look at this, Logan struggled mightily in that first stream game. Is this going to be any different? I don't know. And because I just haven't really seen any of Logan's games yet, that's going to be kind of where I have to go with Ghost here. I'm going to say that the quickest draw in the West here gets it done 4-1.
Oh, I like a little bit of a heat check there. That's good, though. It definitely is a good prediction, man. I think Ghost needs to get back on the schneid. Now, this is the most even matchup according to the computer in this region. DJ Yoshi, it's a rematch. New DJ has looked different. You know, he's not here for the vibes as people think. I think he is here for the vibes, but it's a hybrid vibe. It's like, I'm here for it, but I still want to win, right? It's like the old adage. You can say whatever in the pregame until you get to the actual game. It's different. We saw that against Brock. He broke out. Yoshi has a rematch, though, and he has the data. Because of that data, I got to agree with the computer. Yoshi wins this 1-7. It's not going to be whatever it was last year. Was it 4-0 or something like that? It was bad. Too much DJ.
I don't remember how bad it was. Truthfully.
It was pretty bad. Too much DJ improvement though this year. I think he can pull the upset off in my heart, but I have to go with the CPU. Yoshi gets it done. I think it's just because of the data in previous games, he'll win it.
And that is the upset then.
Yeah, we'll go the upset, but I think a lot of people are going to predict Yoshi. But what's your thoughts on this match here and DJ Yoshi? It's part 2.
I mean, this is going to be an interesting one. We've seen the rematches kind of go hit or miss. We've seen a few of them, a la Zach and Bowtie, where it's gone the 2-0. We've seen other rematches that now the person who lost the first one gets it done. Where we've seen like Turner over me. We've seen Lara now who got over Zach. So it could really go either way, I think. And I do like what DJ's doing right now. So I'm actually going to say that he gets it done, but in a really close game. I'm going to say 4-3 DJ. And DJ then gets the hold the cards basically in the Sandy 16.
Kind of a split opinion, but if it goes your way, it'll be Ashley Peter. If it goes my way, Ashley Ard, and then we both have agreement on Ghost and Ghost DJ, Ghost Yoshi. I think it's probably the second most chaotic region because the next one's the most. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good potential here, Sandfer. A lot of great storylines. You got the legend on legend. One of those guys got to go. You got the world champ in Ashley, right? The all server, and looks really good. This could go either way. You know, this is not just Ashley's region. I know Gman has been saying it. It's Ashley region. It could, very well could be, but let's not count.
I think one thing for Ashley is going to be how far does she truly want to go? Because she's now going to get another stream game here. All of her games so far this year have been streamed. Does she maybe want to back off the gas a little bit? Say, okay, well, if I get to Sandy 16 here, I've got my 6 wins basically now, or would it be 5? It'd be 5.
It'd be 6 if she wins this game. 6.
All right. So she'd be like, maybe okay, I've got my 6 wins. I've got finale. I've got the Sandy 16 here. Have I done enough to really separate myself from the field? And the answer could be maybe a legend on legend where or a budding legend basically in Ashley against either Art or Peter. Maybe she doesn't want to necessarily show all of her stuff in that situation and would kind of back off the gas at some point. Because there's a lot of speaking of someone who played 100 games of Uno last year, it's a lot to play, and there's going to be times where you're going to want to maybe back off the gas at least a little.
Yeah, it's a brutal grind, my friend. It's not. Well, this one, Sandfer, out of all the simulator, I'm surprised on this one. This is a very surprising sim. Let's start with JT. Obviously, took care of the Radin win. That's a no-brainer. No problem. Now, Stingray took care of Acosta, so something's got to give. You look at the way Stingray plays, it's very Brad-esque. I seem like it's like a Brad style that's budding, but he also has one thing that a lot of people don't have, and that's able to bud and really vibe when he needs to. It's crazy to say this, but the computer has Turner winning, but only 4-3, and it was even odds. I have to agree. I think Turner's on upset alert. I think he wins this game, but this is not going to be an easy game. He cannot just rely on saving ammo. He just can't do that. He's got to know when to precisely time it, and Stingray's good at sometimes sniffing that out. Give me Turner 4-3, but I think Stingray's confidence is going to be boosted through the roof no matter what happens here. This is a big game for him. What do you think?
Well, I mean, when I'm looking at this, both players obviously coming into this one 4-1 for this tournament. This was the round that Stingray last tournament got sick, didn't really play his best. I think for Stingray, it's going to be a question of, can he put together multiple rounds in a row? Can he put away distractions a little bit, maybe? For Turner, he's arguably the weakest one in a way. I mean, he got to the Final Four last tournament, but we're not sure necessarily if that's for real. I mean, Turner last year was uber consistent and then just couldn't beat any of the good people. This time he's now got 2 good wins. And I would want to favor him, but with how chaotic this region is, give me Stingray and make it 4-2.
Oh, he checked there from Charles Sandfer. I like it though. I don't even dislike that because Turner is one of those unknown. Now I will say, Sandfer, I know you talked about Ashley kind of saving. I don't think Turner's the kind of guy to save though. He's kind of no
I think it's going to be just gets outplayed a little bit. At a certain point, also his card luck's going to have to run out a little bit. And right now for Turner, he's shown us that if he's getting the card luck, he's near unstoppable. Other than with messing up defensive power plays. The key is going to be, what is he doing when he's not getting the card luck? And that's been really the Achilles heel for him so far.
It is an interesting one for sure. How it's going to play out. It's a chaotic region, so I don't mind that prediction for sure. I think it's valid for sure. Now, this one, in my opinion, Sandfer is the best game of the round. I said that with H and Albion. I thought that'd be the best. Caesar and H. I mean, look, Caesar had that 4-3, and fair play to the man, right? Fair play. He had to deal through some technical issues and a lot of hoopla to get there, right? In my opinion, though, here's what I think about this. H is a motivated player, right? We talk about this all the time. He does not want to continue to take L's. We saw what happened with him when he had that Ashley loss and what he did to Albion. I think the momentum continues. Computer has him win 4-3, and the biggest thing H does that Caesar needs to understand is H is really good at gambling, sticking it when he needs to. He knows how to do +2 openers and skip just enough to kind of rattle the cage. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be H in this 1-7. I think Caesar's going to take another step back and reevaluate using the cup or something. But he will put in a fight. I'm going H here and another upset. What are we thinking?
I think this one's going to be a dogfight. I will agree to that. This is a situation of both players really needing to prove something. And to me, I look at this and I need to see H put together 2 rounds in a tournament before I can really kind of pick him in a situation like this. For that reason, I'm going to say it's Caesar in the 4-3 as opposed to H 4-3. Okay. And Caesar then gets the home field throughout the entire region.
Huge upset there for sure. In a way,
I mean, that's not the upset. I'm picking the favorite anyway.
No. I mean, of course, don't worry about that in terms of Caesar winning that, but that's a huge upset. Caesar controls the cards. Could you imagine Caesar controls the cards when that That'd be something for sure, but it would just show you how crazy this region is. Next one's Lane Tago, and I'm going to kind of keep this brief. Computer had no data on Lane. That's fair. There's just no data, and Tago just seems ready. So basically, the computer basically said, give me Tago here. It did give Lane the benefit of the doubt, though, which is interesting. It did give Lane the benefit of the doubt, which is rare. It was a 4-2. I think it's Tago 4-1, though. I think Tago's going to just see, you know what? If I can take care of business against ALP, who plays very whack sometimes, Lane's just going to be as whack as well. He's used to it. He's comfortable. Lane will just not be able to handle those games over 5 minutes, unlike the first series with Clay. Tago makes it, doesn't create no upset drama. I got Tago 4-1. What says you, Sandfer? Are you agreeing here?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to give Lane benefit of the doubt and that he at least gets one. Because if there's one thing Lane will at least do well is he will fight tooth and nail to try and get anything. But there's a reason that he's a 15. And while it's a nice story to see him get the win over Clay, and I would like to, as an acquaintance of mine, I wouldn't mind seeing him get another win. I think it's just too much Tago. I'm going to say 4-1, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lane can get at least a second win somewhere.
No, I agree there. I think we're going to give him a more fair shot for sure, and we'll see what he can do. Like Tago in a, I don't know, in a Sandy 16, maybe he's got some potential. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. Next one's to Pierre Ellison. I just finished this sim up a little bit ago, but to kind of cut to the chase, the computer still not understanding a lot to Pierre. It doesn't understand Ellison. Out there,
that cut out really bad.
Here, because of that, it goes with the unknown. Surprisingly, of Tapir has that D2 championship in T1, and it goes to favor the pedigree. Tapir 4-2. I kind of agree it's going to be Tapir 4-2, but it's an unknown because Ellison could kind of trip him up with the draw cities where he doesn't like them. Tapir does like draw city. One thing to think about, maybe the 7 and 9 cards isn't the best idea because Tapir's comfortable with anything. I'll go Tapir 4-2, but this is going to be closer than people think for sure. What do you think, Sandfer?
I think it's going to be closer than what the computer says. You might end up wanting to retry a little bit of what you said because it cut out there at a point. For me, I think it's going to be too much Tapir on this, but I do think it's going to be close. I'll give Ellison credit to say that he gets it to the game 7. But yeah, I'm going to say Tapir 4-3 for this one. And just, I like his game a little bit better than what I like Ellison's game in a way.
Yeah, we're all over the board here, man. We got Turner winning on my end. You got Stingray. We both have 8 Caesar split. We do have Tago Tapir in the bottom half, so we'll see. Does Tago control the cards in the bottom half? Maybe an upset Turner and Caesar's down. Could it be Stingray H? It truly is the most chaotic region.
It very well could.
It's one of the most chaotic regions, and you never know. We could see a surprise guy in the Final Four from that region. You never know. I did say H could make it. We'll see. Now, obviously, Sandfer, you can't predict your next game, which is you and Chomik. So your thoughts on Chomik? I'll make the prediction. What's your thoughts?
So, I mean, I'm looking at this with a dual-edged sword. I know that Chomik's played a lot of his games kind of like early morning U.S. time and late night his. For ours, that's not really going to work, truthfully, at least especially if it's during the week, because the way that the window is going to work, I will be getting back to school basically for the majority of the window. So more than likely, this is going to end up having to be a nighttime for me, early morning for Chomik. From that respect, I don't know what to expect really for Chomik. It might be a little bit of a reverse of fortunes for him. I'm hoping to at least get the job done because I'd like to make another Elite 8 run minimum. But I can't take anything for granted with him. He's done well so far this year, and this could end up being a battle to see who's ranked higher on my list at least.
It's more than fair. I think it's more than fair assessment. There's a lot of things on the line for both players. I'm going to go with the computer here. I think Sandfer wins 4-2. It's going to be closer. I think Sandfer, because you have to understand that you were not playing in round 1. I think myself, you, Ashley, Cap, we're all in the same spot. We kind of got to get our bearings back, our sea legs back, since we're in Aquatic April. We get our sea legs back underneath. I think the business will be taken care of. Sandfer 4-2, I agree, spot on. I think he'll give 1 or 2 up, but it's Chomik. I don't know if he's ready. I mean, he has struggled against, I know in other leagues, against myself, and the closest style we have is you and me. I'm just going to go off of history. I got you winning 4-2. I want to give you this next one, Sandfer, because this would be basically G's spot as well. He's not here. He's not on the show. Thoughts on Austin Rogers Dark? You'll take this lead too. It's your region. Actually, take the lead for all the regions. Go for it.
I mean, this is going to be an interesting matchup, I think, because you end up with Dark. He's going to play slow. It's basically the whole reason why you can't really have him streamed back-to-back games, unless it is between like you stream him here and then he gets to the Sweet 16 type thing. And for Rogers, how far is that motivation going to take him? I mean, we saw when he pulled off the big upset last April, he beat Peter in the first round, but then didn't even do anything really the next matchup that he had. I don't even remember who it was against. But for this one, I'm going to give the edge to Dark, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rogers gets it done, just because, if nothing else, Dark is that Mr. 20th place. And if he keeps up the 20th place type average, that would say he gets out in this second round here. So,
big shocker here, Sandfer. Computer is really favoring AR. I'm surprised, but I did a lot of sims on this one. And the biggest thing the sim said is Dark's slow pace will get into his own head on a non-stream. He has to readjust to a non-stream style. And Austin Rogers is very motivated on card starts all over the map between 8 and 10. It seems like we're just been in a sweet spot, but he can play the upper echelon. Because of that, A. Rogers can process more information, and it's going to go A. Rogers 4-3. I agree. I think Rogers pulls the upset here, but I would not be surprised if it goes in Dark's face. This is Dark Rain. He's one of those guys that you just don't know what to expect. He can show up and show out, or he can be out the lunch. I mean, we saw him get a P5 last year in T5. You just never know with Dark. He's one of those inconsistent players. I'm going to go A. Rogers here, but I'm not confident. Out of all the predictions, I'm not confident in the computer on this one. But we'll go with it because that's how we do here. Eli Brock, let's go to Sandfer on this one. What's your thoughts on this one? It's an interesting one. Your fellow statesmen versus the rookie Brock.
yeah, I mean, and I know Brock really well in terms of at least as a person. For Brock, it kind of is a same story, second verse type thing, because yet again, he gets moved up into a higher seed than what I would have originally had him. He gets that commanding 4-1 win, and then he gets that true test of the tournament, basically against someone that's one of the higher seeds overall. And we saw he got an early lead the last time, but then faltered, basically, and it came back to bite him. I could see this working the same way again. And Eli seems to be a very motivated player right now so far this year. I think Eli is wanting to kind of redeem himself after getting just barely on the outside looking in last year, wants to not even put it up to chance. Give me Eli 4-2 for this one, I think, just because I think Brock he's a good player for round one. I haven't seen enough to see that he's going to be good for round two.
Man, that's my prediction. You got the same one. Computer says Eli says 4. The computer says Eli 4-3. And the real reason why is because Brock is going to show a lot more ammo desire. Not going to show ammo desire, but he's going to use it quicker. And Eli's going to have to sometimes get into that bait city where he likes to draw back a lot. But on the flip side, it's only good for the first couple games. I think it's going to work for Brock early. In fact, I think Brock does get out to a 2-0 lead. I could very well see that. It's going to be a retro-style comeback for Eli. He wins 4 straight. Give me Eli 4-2. Though the computer says 4-3. It's going to depend what Eli shows up, but because of the fact that he could potentially say this is huge, could you imagine Eli 5 wins to start the year? That's big. So I got to think Eli gets it done right here, and he'll move over to the Saints. In this last matchup, this was a tough one to predict, honest to God. What do you think here, Sandfer? Monkey M, thoughts on this one? This is an interesting one.
Right now, I would say that to lead into it, Monkey is kind of my surprise player of the year so far, at least in terms of what I've seen. He's basically kind of just outside that top 10 right now threshold for me, without saying where I have him entirely, because I don't want to spoil too much for you and don't want you to have to necessarily base your list off of mine a little bit.
Sure.
And I could see this game really kind of going either way. I think this is a key game for both players. M really needing some of these standout wins early on, and Monkey needs to take advantage of situations right now and prove that whatever is working is working. I'm going to say this is close. Give me Monkey 4-3 for another Sweet 16 for Monkey to start the year.
Computer has Monkey Sweet 16, or well, I guess Sandy 16 as well. It's going to be 4-3. However, I had to factor in that these players do know each other off server, and because of that, I kind of said to the computer, you know what? Let me kind of put some human input in this one. It's one of the only ones I did. I know we messed up with AR and Gman. I put a little human input into it, but not by much, because the computer still believes Monkey's going to play this tactical style that people are not going to figure out yet. He'll get called on eventually later in the season, but not now. He wins and sets up that Eli Monkey potential for the vet class. It could. The potential vet class battle right there in that Sandy 16, which would be something for sure. So in that region, Sandfer is pretty much a chalk region, except we're kind of split on AR and Dark.
Yeah, I have 1-5-2-3. Computer's going 1-13-2-3.
Yeah, it's a split region, and with that 5-13 battle, it's be something for sure. Now, normally G and I would do a hot take segment, but he's not here today, so I had to switch it up a little bit. I want to really kind of use Sandfer's platform. He is our bracket maker, or bracket master, as you'll see on the overlay. You know, Sandfer, we've had a lot of conversation. We talk about this league probably
at least once a day.
Yeah, at least once a day. We probably are the most experienced guys here, right? We've played over 240 plus games, right? You had one less tournament than me. It just shows you how crazy my runs have been lately. But I want to give you a chance to kind of use a state of the sport address. Like, give us like 5 minutes of your time and kind of explain, like a 5 good minute segment, explain what's been going on. Because there's 3 things we're talking about, right? The first obvious one, parity, right? Parity has been out of control. 48 winners, I believe, this year. It's almost, I guess it technically is 75%, but we did have a couple more people coming, like Tapir's an extra player. So let's just go 75% of people have won. The film era, more streamed games, people are catching up on tape. And then the practice cup, right? You can play that. What's going on, and how are we going to get to a point of we're going to get a couple people lonely at the top? Or do you think the midfield right now is truly fifth on back? Is it really a fifth on back situation where the midfield is 5th through 50th? Or do you believe there's 2 or 3 people that are just lonely at the top by the end of the season? Give us just your overall state of the sport of what's going on, because you're not always on this podcast. And what have you seen so far in the players? Because it's been good. To the credit, the players have stepped up, and so has the competition, for sure.
All right. Well, so for starters, I'd say that we're in a terrific spot, for one. Had you told me that through basically one tournament and a round, that we would have had 48 different people that have won a game, I would have told you there's no way. Because I figured that we would have had some cream rise to the top early enough, and then those guys could have maybe taken their foot off the gas a little bit as we got later on in the year, and those people would have been the ones that got kind of upset a little bit for those that are trying to avoid relegation. I think that puts us in a great spot parity-wise. It's going to make our jobs also really difficult when we get to the end of this tournament, and we have the commission teams trying to put together our Super League rankings list. It's one of the reasons why I like to definitely make my list round by round as we're going along. And I find that gives me a little bit of fluidity, and it tells me, okay, when I get to these situations, is this person miles clear to where, like, even if they lose the next round, they're not going to fall behind this person? And I'm I'm not doing that necessarily right now, only because for this, there's so much fluidity with whose wins are good that I'm having to do that. Basically, round by round, it could change a little bit. For instance, I dropped Clay massively down because all of a sudden his wins weren't as great as what's maybe like a Stingray or an Ems were. For that, it'll make making the brackets a little bit harder probably as we go along, because you don't want to do too much of a knee-jerk reaction, but at the same time, it's going to provide some good fluidity with everyone moving around the bracket, and should open up the matchups that people will do a little bit as time goes on. And I think it's just good to see that there's people that are having motivation factors. I like the fact that the Practice Cup is giving people a way to practice extra card starts, extra strategies that they're seeming to apply. And we're seeing people that I wouldn't have expected to see raising up to the occasion. I didn't expect to see Turner make a Final Four. Monkey to make 2 Sweet 16s to start the year, basically, would be insane. I would not have seen it coming. I would not have seen the idea that I potentially would have had Monkey ranked ahead of Yepes as a player. The fact is, I do. And the way that things have gone, if both Monkey and Yepes lost round 2, I'd have Monkey ahead of Yepes right now as things stand, just because his wins actually are that much better. And it's one of those things that's going to happen. If you get seated lower, you're going to have the potential to have better matchups. And as we get through T2, we'll have people be able to have their list. It'll help bring in quad system for the first ranking. And we'll start to kind of be able to piece together whose wins are good, whose wins are not. I guess I'll use this segment to probably put in my winners and losers, because we didn't get a chance to do that earlier.
Yeah, go for it.
For the first round, I mean, the winners I had Myth, Ziemba, DJ, Yoshi, Ashley, or I guess from Shark Region I had Myth and Ziemba. From Dolphin Region I had DJ, Yoshi, Ashley, and Logan as winners. And then for Tuna, I had Turner, Stingray, H, Tapir. And then finally in my region, I had Monkey, M, and Rogers were winners, truthfully, because of just how that went. Loser side of things, for Shark Region, I had KT, Payne, Clint, Carson, Captain even. Captain took a huge hit for me just because it's a forfeit win. And I brought it up in my quote. When you look at what happened to people who had forfeit wins last year, forfeit wins basically make you null and void in any tiebreaker situation. So for Captain now, he has to be well clear of anyone, not even just on head-to-head, but he basically has to be – he's at 1 win right now, even though he's at technically 2. Like, on a sheet, he would have 2 wins, but realistically, when we compare him, he's going to have 1. For Dolphin Region, my losers were Nam, Bolton, England. And then in Tuna, I had Clay, Acosta, Gold, and Caesar actually as a loss a little bit, because for Caesar, it wasn't necessarily that him losing was the loss. It's because his main loss was to Carson. So Carson losing the way he did was just massive in terms of Caesar's resume. So Caesar, despite having 2 wins, is actually one of the lower ranked guys among those 2 win guys for me. And finally, in the Salmon region, my losers were myself, Brando, and Gman. Again, for me, it's the same reason as Captain. Forfeit win now, I have to look at when I go and have any tiebreakers, I'm going to be losing tiebreaker because of forfeit win. But I guess in conclusion for it, definitely a good spot for League to be. I think the relegation battle is going to be insane when we get to T5, especially for motivation factor. And I didn't see it happening, but I could see it be a situation where even someone that gets a series win this year might actually get relegated, because we just end up with so many different guys with a win at some point during the year.
No, that's a great way to end it, man. I don't really got much to add. Obviously, the sport's in great shape with the stream package. Obviously, We got the bracket. We're just nailing down as much as we can. We'll get that better in T3. More data is coming in. I'm looking forward to that quad system. I probably use it more than most people on the team. So that I expect T3.
It's just funny considering it's the thing I put together, but you definitely use it more than I even do.
I love that system, man. I'm always a nerd when it comes to that. But no, I appreciate that. You've done a lot for the sport. You're a bracket master, as we talk about. You have to. Well, you don't realize you have to manage all the rematches, which is probably the biggest thing I'm always impressed about. Just how we have to work together and craft that. That's probably the biggest thing I will say.
Notepad files make the world go round.
Notepad files do, man. And you know what? God bless, because without you, we would not be here in the position we are. So I do appreciate taking your time. And what can you say, man? 48 winners. It's just it's crazy. It's a crazy world we live in, and there's just a lot. Even Eli, right? I mean, who after his decision, he's one step away from a back-to-back Sweet 16, and
possibly even back-to-back Elite 8.
And maybe a back-to-back vet class wins. I mean, lots going right for a lot of people that no one would have expected, and you got to give them props and you got to give them their flowers. The question is, of course, the biggest question will always be, will it be sustainable in the summer? Because once it's like the old adage, right? It's okay when the weather's climate cool and it's kind of wait till we get to May. Once we get to late May, the weather starts to heat up. Who's going to rise to the occasion? I'm looking forward to seeing it. Well, Sandfer, that's going to conclude us for topic 4. The last one is one last thought. This is probably going to be a me and you thing. What's your one last thought from the Scuba 64? And what are you looking forward to in each region? What's one last thought for each region that could make the difference? Let me know. We'll start with the Shark region.
For Shark region, probably that whoever wins Captain Yepes is going to go to the Final Four, in my opinion. I like whoever wins that game to make a deep run. For the Dolphin region, I'm intrigued to see where Ashley's motivation is going to be and see whether or not how far into a tournament she wants to go again. And let's see, for Tuna, I'm probably intrigued to see how crazy this truly can get, because that was the region that had the most upsets out of the because basically every other region had 3. This one had 5. So I'm intrigued to see how chaotic this one truly can get. For Salmon region, I mean, it's hard to say when I'm in that region. I'm intrigued to see how far Eli and Monkey go, I guess, is the final thought there. And then just an overall thought, looking towards the idea that for T3, maybe still trying to get the upsets brought down a little bit. 14's a little bit high for my liking again, but
Right.
It's at least better than when we had 18 upsets in round 1 in March. So a little bit better this time around, a little bit more fair, balanced seeding, and probably just trying to bring that even more into balance for T3.
I think that's a fair assessment, man. I want to see if we can get to maybe a place of 10. I think that's a good number. 8 to 10. I think that's good.
I think 10 is 10's the ideal one for me.
Shark region, I'll kind of quickly go over it. My number one story, honest to God, this is I'm ready to see either whoever wins Vapor Llamas needs to make a statement. That's my statement. Whoever wins that game needs to make a statement saying, hey, you know what? I'm tired of the media junk. It's time to make a move. Whoever wins that game, in my opinion, could potentially make a Final Four. Now, Dolphin, you kind of stole it a little bit with the whole Ashley words for motivation lie. I'm going to go Yoshiard here. I want to see, because every time I do these sims, man, what do I always say? Wow, Yoshiard got this opportunity again. When's it going to finally break, right? I think one of those guys have to say, you know what? I'm tired of just getting this hype built up. For Art, it's a little bit different. He wants to shut the haters. Yoshi's just straight hype opportunity. I want to see what those two can do. Can they hype it up? Tuna, this is Caesar's run. If there's any run, Caesar Age, I think that's going to, you got to look at Caesar Age. But I want to see Caesar. If there's any opportunity for him to get into a fight, this is it. If Turner loses like we think he could potentially lose to Stingray, I want to see Caesar make that jump from that one quality win he might have had last year, which was redacted technically. He'll get a second one maybe if he plays Turner, and maybe a third one if he makes it far.
I mean, if he faces Turner, that would be a revenge game.
Be a revenge game. I want to see if we get that revenge game. I want to think he's the one guy to watch, even though I picked Age. I want to see if he controls the cards more than we think. For your region, it's simple, man. There's two of them, right? I have two. It's obviously Monkey Eli and the unknown of Austin. Is this new Austin Rogers? Is this man just so motivated after what happened in, I don't know, I guess the whole last year with the whole AB situation? He says, you know what? I'm done with the games. I'm done with the charades. That was my last two Raw. This is new Rogers, right? Whether he wins or loses, I'm going to make a run. And if he can take care of Dark, he's got you coming. Let's see. Let's see. Or Chamic, of course. But let's see if he can do it. Let's see if he puts that money where the mouth is and shows up. Because I remember he had some interesting post-game comments. And I want to see him put that money where the mouth is, man. Let's see if he can do it. But that's it, Sandfer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, man. What an episode. This probably was 2 hours long. So,
It was.
Yeah, we can talk forever, man. We can talk forever, brother. That's the nice thing about us. We have a lot of experience in the league. A lot of great things coming. I want to thank Short, as always, for helping us out with this production. And, of course, Gman, if we couldn't be there, we wish him the best as he recovers with a little bit of under the weather and some school stuff. All right, guys, we will see you back for EP10, which will be your Time 32 recap and your Sandy 16 official preview with hopefully G back. But if not, Sanford will always be on reserves if we need him. Regardless, thanks for tuning out. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and, of course, our home base on YouTube. The IG and links below will be in the description. Good, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning out to Episode 9, Scuba 64 recap, and Tide 32 preview. Peace.